It's the second day of the second half of the year 2024. I hope your week is off to a great start. Mine certainly is, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the AM show, the most informative, educative, and analytical breakfast show on the block. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and I do this with Benjamin Akakpo. This morning, we'll start by serving you the news, the AM news, first bulletin on this channel, and then we'll get into the news review segment. Kojo Poku, energy analyst, and Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, financial analyst, will be joining us to get into the various stories captured in the newspapers, and then we'll bring you AM Sports, the latest chronicles from the world of sport, and then our big conversations begin. Today, we'll look at the loss of confidence in Ghana's democracy, threats of corruption, political recruitment to security services, and galamsey menace, highlighted as major setbacks at the Republic Day lecture under the auspices of the One Ghana movement. What is the way forward in eliminating these existential threats to the nation's fledgling democracy? We will discuss the issues. We'll also take a swipe at the NPP's choice of a running mate. Dr. Baumia is set to officially present Matthew Opoku Prempeh as vice presidential candidate to the National Executive Council. But will he command an overwhelming support in the face of open opposition from a colleague member of parliament? We've seen the issues, we've seen the majority leader calling for peace and unity, but what does this mean and what's the way forward? We'll get into that issue as well. So you're invited to join us with your comments and your thoughts. Of course, we are because you are. This show is for you. And so our stories and analysis should resonate with you. Join us either on phone or across all social media platforms at myjoyonline.com and Joy News on TV. Welcome to the AM show. Let's start now with the AM news. Welcome to the program. This is the AM News. In our first story, Minister of Defense Dominic Ntiwo has cautioned the military to avoid defending political parties during the upcoming elections. He emphasized that the military must remain independent when even intervening in election-related issues. Speaking at the Maiden Republic Day public lecture at the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College in Accra, he underscored the importance of military impartiality. Carlos Kaloni has more in the following report.
Organized by the One Ghana movement in collaboration with the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, the Maiden Republic Day public lecture aimed to address challenges of democratic control of the military and propose solutions. The event included ministers, parliamentarians, the Chief Justice, civil society, military leaders, media, and academia. Delivering the keynote lecture, former Minister for National Security Francis Poku revealed a growing distrust in Ghana's democratic rule. He warned that without significant changes, Ghana could face another political crisis.
This is a test, and I believe we must all respond to this call, that if the face of democracy does not change after 2025, we are going to go through another history. And it must be a collaborative effort. Because I am telling you authoritatively, people are losing confidence in democracy. And the instant reaction,
Professor Kwesi Aning, Director of Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, argued that oversight institutions in security governance are failing to adequately check the security services.
Quite a number of the oversight institutions have failed to deliver. And when Mr. Poku talks about the threats that we are facing, there are more internal threats than those that emanate from the outside. We don't want to talk about that because it's uncomfortable. We are increasingly seeing, and I like Mr. Poku's example of Ashama, in which Parliament was fantastically silent. But not only that, there have been lots of instances where Parliament ought to have spoken, but has not.
However, James Agalga, ranking member of Parliament Defense and Interior Committee, disagreed, insisting the executive must prioritize the committee's recommendations.
Some of the things we're criticized for, we have done our part as a committee. You must have read the Ashaman report. I mean, it's been released. We ask that those who were brutalized be compensated. I mean, and those who abused their offices, their power, be sanctioned. We did that. But the problem now is would the leadership prioritize security matters in Parliament? I think these are matters that ought to be reported to the Speaker.
Panel member Josephine Nkrumah, ECOWAS Commissioner to Liberia, believes military involvement in elections must be streamlined to safeguard the country's democracy.
We know that elections are usually, election security is usually managed by the police and led by the police, with the military coming in to support as allied agencies. But what we saw in 2020, I believe, was alarming. And I really would like us to have this conversation on redefining the role of the military in elections. We know the military is needed. How and what role they play is critical in a conversation that we must have to define properly their scope and their role when it comes to elections.
Minister of Defense Dominic Nitewo, however, cautioned the military to avoid partisanship in its duties.
I say it with a regret and with a very, very stern face that the military have no business supporting any political party, whether in government, during elections or after elections. Your job is to stand in the middle and make sure that the people of Ghana have the government they have voted for. That's your job. Do your work and let the politicians do their politics.
Indeed, security experts are warning of dire consequences if the country's democracy is not rebooted. According to them, there is a growing disinterest in the current form of democracy being practiced here in Ghana. Reporting from the Hamidou Hall here in the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, my name is Carlos Caloni for Joy News.
The special committee tasked to investigate a leaked audio tape on which some senior police officers were heard plotting the removal of IGP Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare with the former NPP regional chairman Bugri Nabu has found that the said police officers misconducted themselves. The officers, COP Alex George Mensah, who is now retired, Superintendent George Lysander Sari, and Superintendent Eric J.B. Emmanuel, according to the committee, committed a major offense under police regulations and must be sanctioned in accordance with the police disciplinary procedure. The report, which is currently before the House, is also now the subject of controversy after chairman of the committee, Samuel Atachia, refused to sign the report over differences with the other members who all signed. Well, lawyers for the IGP say the development confirms the chairman of the committee, Samuel Atachia, is biased against the Inspector General of Police. Now, listen to Kwame Jan. He's lead counsel for the IGP during the hearings.
What has happened has fully confirmed our earlier nightmare that the chairman, Honorable Atachia, had his own agenda and that he was on a frolic of his own, way outside the remit of the committee. And we have been vindicated. We have been in the practice of the House. The chair appointed by the Speaker has no original vote. So Honorable Atachia's vote is only a casting vote if there was a tie, and there wasn't. So far as we are concerned, this report is a unanimous report. Our client, the indefatigable Inspector General of Police, has been sacked from office. We know it's part of the machination of some unscrupulous elements who have an insatiable appetite to be IGP.
On the other side, lawyer for Superintendent George Osari, Alfred Papadakwa, says it appears the other side of the committee were in a hurry to hang their client.
What is being circulated we've not formally been given a copy of the report, though we are informed that the report has been submitted to Parliament. I have seen what is being circulated, where most of the members have signed, the chairman has not signed. I'm not too sure whether that is the same thing that's before Parliament. But
what do you make of the conclusion by a majority of the committee that your client acted unprofessionally and was politically motivated?
Well, I think that conclusion is a bit perverse, and for all intents and purposes, it looks like somebody was in a hurry to hang our client.
What's next for you? Because your client has been cited for contempt of Parliament Are you intending to take a legal action on it?
I think what you need to understand is that at this stage, the report is going to the plenary, is going to be debated, and it's what comes out of that debate. That is what will be acted upon. So at this stage, all what we can do is to wait until the final process has concluded. Thereafter, whatever comes out as a verdict of Parliament, we shall advise our client accordingly. But in the meantime, nothing stops us also from commenting on what has been circulated all over the media.
At the moment, where is your client? Is he still at work? How is his state now?
He's still in the service. He's still going about his duties as any police officer would do.
Is he some way affected by the verdict of the 5 members of the committee?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, we all were present and know what transpired at the committee level. So, I mean, we have to just trust the process.
Away from that, residents and traders who live and work along the drains leading to the Koli Lagoon are asking for the immediate dredging of the drains as they fear any flood could result in disaster. Described as the principal outlet through which all major drainage channels in the national capital empty their waste into the sea, volumes of waste intermixed with the ceaseless liquid produce awful stench as well as an overflow whenever it rains. Residents who have need speaking to Hannah Odami say they want their sand out of the drains to allow for smooth flow. Here's her report.
The waters flow from the Brie area through many communities such as Aveno, Circle and Graphic Road downstream into the Koli Lagoon. Along its pathway are mostly sand and filth. These elements hinder the smooth flow of the waters. The country is ranked highly among African countries that are most exposed to risks from multiple weather-related hazards. Those who live near these areas and constantly bear the brunt of the flood's impact are asking for big rubbish bins while they constantly look out for dredging equipment. Grace Gavo and Nana Kwame live and work at Aveno.
Oh, it's now 18 years to 19 years. Oh, so third year. I
have lived in this area for the past 18 years. I have lost count of my property that has been swept away whenever it rains because the floods render us homeless.
Oh,
my wish is to relocate, but I can't pay the rent in other parts of the city which do not get flooded. We plead with government to constantly dredge the lagoon so that it does not overflow when it rains.
By last 3-4 years in by 2024.
When the rain falls continuously, the water overflows its banks, and the force is strong enough to wash vehicles away. When it happens like that, we have to run for our lives. And with the onset of the rains, I plead with authorities to quickly act, or we will not hear good news.
At the Odo market, traders are quick to remind us of the awful memories they have of the June 3rd fire and flood disaster that led to the loss of about 150 lives.
When I am out of the house and it rains, I get very scared. I wish the wall would be extended upwards a bit. I believe that will help us a lot.
To curb similar related events and to build resilience against perennial flooding in Accra, $675 million is needed that will enhance flood protection regime along the Odo Basin and also re-engineer drains, remove obstructive materials, and implement a performance-based dredging program, according to the stakeholders. But that money is not available. Aisha and some others who spoke to Joy News say they've been hoping for the drains to be dredged so that their property, which are always washed away whenever the area floods, won't cease. This corn mill operator shares his experience during every raining season.
Every odonum neighbor, odonna your market.
We have to dismantle our corn mill machine and equipment whenever it rains heavily. We fear for our lives because when it floods, live electrical cables falls into the stagnant waters, which electrocutes people when they get into contact with the water. Sometimes people even die as a result. We are compelled to climb up the stalls and stay there until the water dries up. We plead with authorities to raise the walls surrounding the Odo.
And as we were filming, the rains set in. Traders briskly began to pack their wares to safety. They are not happy about the situation and have one common plea.
Last 3 months, a meeting.
3 months ago, the authorities held a meeting with us, and they told us they would dredge the drains. I hope that they will fulfill their promise.
However, likely get an immediate response, as the Western Housing Minister Kujopong Kroma acknowledged on the Pulse on the Joy News channel in April this year that his office is behind schedule on flood control program.
I have inherited a flood control program that is behind schedule. As I've told you, even what we are doing is just about 2% of what we should be doing in the Greater Accra region.
The last time we checked, the amount of money involved runs into billions of cedis.
It's $200 million. So yes, if you do the conversion, it will run into billions. It's a $200 million project funded by the World Bank. That's a Garrett project. But what has actually been released or spent is not up to $200 million.
On the flip side, though, are some assurances from the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Titus Glover. He says a plan exists to desilt all gutters.
The assemblies, that is their responsibility. All the drains around, we need to desilt it and make sure any little downpour, the water will just flow.
As to when the promise will be fulfilled or the flooding situation permanently addressed, those affected by the negative impact of the rain continue to find alternatives to stay alive and to secure their property whenever the clouds gather.
You see, it
just started
because
we are packing off our stuffs. We get scared whenever it's about to rain. We can't watch on for the rain to wash us away. Authorities do not care because they have safe places to live with their families.
They are supposed
to stretch and clear the odor for free flow of the water.
For Joy News, I am Hannah Odame.
Away from that beautiful report from Hannah Odame, the Ochiman Environmental Protection Brigade says land guards working for some estate developers within Aduejiri and Okanta have hatched a reprisal attack on them. The Ochiman Environmental Protection Brigade hinted that the plot was intercepted in a voice recording on a certain water platform. Maxo Kudeko has more in the following report.
Addressing a deba of chiefs and people of the Benkum division of Achim Ebuakwa State at Begro, Osaji Fuamweti of Repenning called on the government to act fast on teacher remuneration. He acknowledged that the free senior high school education introduced by the Akufo-Addo government is one of the biggest investments which affords every Ghanaian child a free education to the secondary school level. However, Saji Fuamweti of Repenning underscores the importance of addressing some few challenges hindering the success of the program. Ochihini says teacher motivation and good remuneration for teachers are inextricably linked with quality education.
Free SHS. Also, mo here NCOB akwan so be school. Kwala nyina ko school bi. School yes akwan antimuka. As school no ko na usua de. Kwala na so nya table. onya desk onya konya traso na onya teacher pa eche na de so man kwala computers na dan ne ade nyina onya teacher pa akwala de sua kwachi ye nyina kwasi ya ana na grofo kira de don kwala fi ya eko etema eko nkran ani nkrafo eko pison ni enne se entua teacher fo ka yi kama teacher fo se won so ye ma incentive no nya ba bi tra yi no kira de na kwala no hu ade efi se won so obi ba no uncha na de no kayo se oba so wo ba bi ka se oba so wo ba bi na education kwa na betumi ama online atupon.
Sajifo Amoitio for Repenyin also called on leaders to serve in humility and respect. According to Ochehene, throughout history, there is no single rich or great leader who died and was buried with his wealth, but the lives that they impact lives on till eternity.
Yemfa tumi enya hunya tumi de udi tumi a udi som osum ti ne otumi ahobrasie mu tumi no eso sisika bia. There's power in humility. There's authority in humility. Dabia meka so ko Kristo mu na o ka Yesu ofa torobo na sei ofa bokiti o hu na suafo na ase Yesu obre no wase ohuru na suafo na ase se me ho ameda se Yesu dabi o dem ma onyo o se dai se o person som emma wo ye kese a som obi ani ho a wa fa ne dan for is dey go no so me kwa me fa dan eni machi anko ana obi anso ni ho a abako semu ye boni din se ni sikenti eso ready obasum ye already obachira de yi na de ba go so awon wa ya untwitwa na muti asese se won si ubedi na me osazwa mojo for penyo chimamu man kase apeswa udi yenye yo.
The Benkum division is the second largest division within the Achim Ebuakwa state structure, with over 300 towns and villages. Within the Achim Ebuakwa state hierarchy, the Benkum Hini, otherwise known as the Fantiakwa.
In other stories, the Energy Commission has called on the OT Regional Educational Directorate to ensure more participation of schools in future events of the Senior High School Renewable Challenge. The Commission believes this would make the challenge more competitive. The Commission made the remarks at this year's OT Regional Senior High School Renewable Energy Challenge, where only 7 out of 25 schools participated. There's more in this report.
The 2024 edition of the Senior High School Renewable Energy Challenge saw 7 schools face off in the OT region with their projects on the theme Application of Renewable Energy Technologies in Solving Land Degradation and Water Pollution. Kejibiasatu, Rara, Father Dugli, Bueman, Dodipapasi, Biakuya Community and Tapaman Senior High Schools participated in the contest. After fierce presentations from students, the judges grilled them on their understanding of the projects. Rara Senior High School was adjudged the best school with a viable project. The one with this small-scale farming project, which water distribution system can be controlled by an application they developed on the mobile phone, what they refer to as Asasibuafo. Jennifer Nebe is a member of the team.
We've gone to so many competitions, and this is our 3rd time, but this the one that we've won. We are highly excited. Our innovation is very high, so when we go, we make sure that you do more work about our project so that we can raise the name of our school to a higher criteria.
Abuaji Daniel is one of the teachers behind the team. He tells us about new features that can be added to the project.
New innovations that we need to add, like the fire detection system. We have soil moisture sensors, and then other things that we would incorporate. And text message. We have other things that will be added so that to make it more powerful system.
Julius Nkansa Nyako is the senior manager in charge of renewable energy regulations and the SHS challenge coordinator from Energy Commission. He's impressed about the students' performance, but also wants the Regional Education Directorate to encourage maximum school participation in the coming years.
We've had a very good and successful challenge today. The students from the various schools did very well. They came up with very innovative ideas and projects which can be used to solve some of the challenges that we are facing in the country, notably land degradation and also water pollution. The Energy Commission, we are partnering with Ghana Education Service and Ghana TVET Service to promote renewable energies in our schools. This year in this region, OT region, we had 7 schools competing for the honors. I would want to take this opportunity to encourage all the heads of institutions in this region, the Regional Education Directorate, to support the schools to participate in this challenge.
And now, St. Monica Senior High School will be missing out on contesting at the national stage of the National Science and Math Quiz after the school failed to secure a slot at this year's championship. The school conceded to a formidable opponent, Kofi J. Senior High School, who serenaded them to the exit door of the competition. Kofi J. Senior High School will be making their first-time appearance at the national stage after several years of attempts. Emmanuel Bright Kweku reports from Kumasi.
We are disciplined, we are hardworking, we are visionary, we are great future, and our warrior.
And if you see this excitement, it shows how the students and old students, teachers from Kofi AJ Senior High School have made their debut appearance at the national stage of the National Science and Math Quiz. Well, they did not beat any ordinary school. They kicked out St. Monica's all the way from Mampong and qualified to this particular contest, this championship. And I must say they are so excited.
We really worked hard and we knew we were going to qualify. There was a match hope that we qualify. We feel excited now and we are coming with heat this year. We are coming with a very much heat. That's what I would say. Okay, so how did you find the contest between you and St. Monica's? Did you say it was an easy win or? Oh, it was an easy win, but no school is small in NSMQ, so we didn't take it like it's a falla but we knew we were going to win. This is our first time. I feel very excited. I can see you are a bit down. Are you almost tearing? No. It's tears of joy. So how will you feel when you go back to school, and even your parents, how would they feel today? They will feel very proud that we have qualified for the first time. Yeah, they will feel very proud. Okay. All right, so now let me find out for you. Are going to the nationals or even your regional championship is just, and we have the experienced Prempeh College, OWAS and the likes. What should they expect from Kofi AJ? You as an officer, what should we expect? Okay, what they are supposed to expect is nothing but more heat, because the energy we are coming with, it's not going to be easy. We are not taking it easy with anyone at all this year. We are much prepared for everyone. Sir, you have been preparing your students all these years, and today finally you have achieved what you have always wanted.
All I will say is that we know we are good. We've always been good. We are excellent. But always been having the grade A schools. So people don't know that we are good. We'll meet Cars, we'll meet Kumaka, and then we'll meet Kumasi High. So always we are second, so people don't know that we are good. But today we came to show them that if you meet any average school within our level, they will not be able to match us. And so that's the coordinated students from Kofi AJ SHS, and they have qualified for the very first time to the national stage of the National Science and Math Quiz. They are hoping to better up their performance. They beat St. Monica's, and now they are living here as qualifiers to the national stage of the National Science and Math Quiz. From here at the KNUS Auditorium, my name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku.
Benjamin Akakwo is up next with Business Update.
Welcome to the Business Updates. In our first story, economist Professor Patrick Esuming has urged government to focus on long-term reforms that will change the structure of the economy. His advice comes on the back of the release of $360 million in a third tranche into the Bank of Ghana's account following the successful review of the funds program. Now, speaking to Joy Business, Professor Esuming maintained although the funds released were minimal to transform the economy, government had a greater role to play to consolidate efforts in stabilizing the economy.
Read what they are saying to mean that it's the 360 million that will help, that will consolidate our gains. It wouldn't. I think it's probably a stronger commitment to making longer term reform that will change the structure of our economy. That's probably more important than the 360 million to go on a long way to shore up some of our reserves. But that impact is, like I said, is going to be very marginal. I think, you know, there's been the message that's been put out there in terms of the nature of our recovery of the economy is probably overstating it. Yes, the GDP number for this quarter, the first quarter of the year, was way higher than expected, but it's just one quarter. And even if you take the detailed look at the GDP number, you see that there are problems. So, there are important sectors that are still seeing contraction, like the energy sector, contracted about 7.5%, which doesn't bode well for going forward. So I think, yes, there are some positive signs, but we shouldn't, there's still a lot of work to be done before the economy will reach any path to sustainable recovery.
And that's it for the Business Update. Handing over back to Sweetie Abochi.
And on that note, we are wrapping up for the AM News. Coming up next is a news review. You want to stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. Time now for the news review. We'll get right into it. But before I introduce my guests, you know how it is. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helps us bring you this segment. And they're offering you, as always, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Just reach out to them at any of their branches. Let's start with right here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi. Chronomabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate, there's Tema Community 22, there's Tichiman Hanswa, and Esiamanzama. You can also reach them on these phone numbers, 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And the start of the newspaper review. Joining us this morning, we have energy analyst Kojo Poku. Good morning, Kojo. Kojo, can you hear me?
Yeah, Ben, good morning. Can I hear you? How are you?
I am well. Good to see you. We also have... Go ahead, Kojo.
No, good to see you. Good to see you, Ben.
Right. We also have joining the conversation Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. He is a finance analyst or a financial analyst. He also joins the conversation from far, far away. I like using that because of the Shrek animated movie, far, far away. Anyway, Kofi, good morning to you as well.
Good morning, gentlemen.
So since I am referring to your colleague, your counterpart as Kojo, so I'm sticking to Kofi for you today. Kojo and Kofi.
Works for me.
All right, so let's do this. Let's have your thoughts on any topical matters, pertinent matters you'd like to share your thoughts on. I'll start with you, Dr. Dogbe, and then I'll go to Kojo.
Ben, I'd like to comment briefly on a story that I read about the strong performance of the banking sector, despite the economic downturn. And I'm not surprised to hear that banks like GCB and other banks have done quite well when it comes to the 2023 performances. Even though it's been a challenging economy for most businesses, resulting in declining asset quality amid prohibitive interest rates, which is not surprising for the most part. Then the part that caught my attention is that some of these strong performances of the banks are fueled by, deposit growth and loan growth, if I recall. When it comes to deposit growth, I'll be more interested in better understanding what is causing, customers to hold higher deposits instead of investing into high-performing assets. Is it because the economy is not doing well, and so there isn't much of investment options available to them, so they prefer to hold their assets in deposits and wait for the economy to recover? And then on the loan or credit growth aspect, I'm also struggling to understand if there was indeed a significant growth, because rates are pretty prohibitive at this point, right? So who is taking these loans? And what are they investing in that is producing the right returns to service these loans after their profits are adjusted for inflation and other drivers? Just a few questions that I have, and I would like to research these further.
Thank you for your thoughts. Let me hear from you, Kojo. Any bits that you'd like to share with us this morning before we get into the papers?
Well, there is a video that is going viral. A lady in the Tema area who purportedly or allegedly was abused by the police in the Tema area. And that video is very uncomfortable. I think
is that the one with some young boys, some teens? Is that what you're referencing? Some 4 people?
It was GH1. It's a GH1 lady interviewing the lady. Apparently, the police thought she was part of an armed robbery, and she said that she wasn't. And they used these whole clippers to basically punch, to threaten to punch her ears and stuff like that.
Okay,
I actually forwarded the video to the IGP yesterday. And I hope we get some feedback from the police on what they are doing. Look, our police are to protect us, and they should know that there's a fundamental human right where every citizenry is presumed innocent unless found guilty by a competent a competent court. So if you're a police person and you arrest somebody based on an allegation, even if you are basically think the person is guilty, please, let's stop the beatings and the harassment and all the things that we've been doing. I think it's really, for 2024 Ghana, I think the police should act much better.
And just a quick add-on to that point, it's just been a number of months when we had that situation where a gentleman had been arrested and his wife or his girlfriend went to pay him a visit, and I think there was some tussle, the police got offended, and she lost part of her ear. I don't know whether you didn't see that story, but those are some of the very sad developments. I think she was even thrown into police cells or something. I could be wrong, but I do know that I do recall the bit about the ear. So the police service is doing a lot, but some of these incidents leave a very sour taste in the mouths of people. But that said, let's get into the papers very quickly. I'll start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. 3 million children above 5 to receive Ghana cards. NHIA picks up cost. There's also easy to conduct voter transfer for security personnel and others. Cyprus president, and we could simply say Cypriot, shares Ayoko Boche's Commonwealth vision, and minister rallies support for economic upturn. On the back page, Nifa SHS gets new ICT center, and there's Atimpoku Esikuma Road still open to traffic. Atimpoku brings a lot of memories. Reminds me of going back to school at Bishop Herman back then. And that's according to the ministry. But let's get into the stories now. The Minister of Defense, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, has rallied the support of Ghanaians as the country continues to implement the 3-year program with the International Monetary Fund aimed at restoring economic growth and debt sustainability. He said while the government appreciated constructive criticisms, comments that talked down the economy were not in the best interest of anybody. Using the recent decline of the local currency as an example, Dr. Amin Adam said the cedi's struggles could be partly blamed on negative comments and speculations from some sections of the public. He said, "Good people of Ghana, in this journey towards economic recovery and growth, we have faced challenges, but our resilience and determination have kept us strong. Let us continue to stand united in support of our government's efforts to steer our economy towards a brighter future," the minister stated. And Dr. Amin Adam was speaking at the joint press conference by the Ministry of Finance and the IMF on the approval of Ghana's second review by the executive board of the fund. When people say this, yes, technically I will support you. Let's not speak negatively about our country and our currency and all of that. But Dr. Amin Adam, did your end, what did they say in the past? You see, you can't expect different strokes for different folks. As you do to others, so it shall be done to you. And sometimes some of these things are, but by and large though, Dr. Amin Adam, I'm speaking to you directly here. The cedi's woes have prevailed. There was a marginal gain, then it slumped 3-point-something% to the dollar. And since that time, as of last week, the last time I checked, it was hovering around 15.7, thereabouts. So I don't know what negativity you're talking about when people are hoarding money in their homes, the very people who should know better and all of that. I think you should look within before you look without. I do agree. Some of the negative talk affects the currency. Yes, hoarding and all of that. But if you want to start from this, start from home. Let's look at other stories in there. I'll go to page 13 and take it from there. Let's quickly get there. So 3 million children above 5 to receive Ghana cards. Now, effective this month, children aged between 6 and 14 years will be issued Ghana cards for free. The National Health Insurance Authority has absorbed the cost of the issuance of the cards for an estimated 3 million children in the country to enable them to link up with the National Health Insurance Scheme to access primary health care. Consequently, the NHIA will pay 245 million Ghana cedis to the National Identification Authority to provide the Ghana cards to children in that age bracket. The Chief Executive Officer of the NHIA, Dr. Da Costa Abuaje, who disclosed this at a workshop for journalists and other stakeholders in Kumasi last Saturday, said the intervention formed part of measures by the authority to ensure universal health coverage for all. Good step. My only hope, because he's been in here talking to me in recent times and talking about the constraints financially and logistically. I support this. Fantastic. But Dr. Da Costa Abuaje, I'm hoping we are not doing too much so that you don't end up with financial constraints if the money flow stops. Because I know, I mean, the kidney bit and what do you even call it? I'll get the name. And everything that is being done. And now this one as well. If we have the funds, perfect. But let's not burn from both ends. EC to conduct voter transfer for security personnel and others, and the Electoral Commission will conduct a voter transfer exercise for prison inmates, security personnel, and students from July the 3rd to July the 5th, 2024. The Deputy Chairman of the EC in charge of corporate services, Dr. Bosman Asari, disclosed this to the Daily Graphic after an inter-party advisory committee meeting in Accra yesterday. He said the exercise would allow prison inmates to transfer their votes to the constituencies where they were being held, while security personnel who missed the previous transfer window would have the opportunity of transferring their votes. In addition, and this is where I'll end, he said the EC would set up machines in the 25 university campuses to enable students who registered in their hometowns but had not transferred their votes to do so, to enable them to vote on their various university campuses. So 3 stories for your reflection this morning. I'll start with you, Wisdom. Kofi, on this one.
But I think the Minister of Finance is right, when he called for Ghanaians to rally around the initiatives to help the economy recover. But when it comes to the city depreciation issue, I think we can all hope, and I mean hope, because it is not a guarantee. We can only hope that the debt restructuring and the eventual release of this next tranche, of the IMF loan, I hope it will help stabilize the city a little bit. And I think we should be focused on addressing the underlying factors that are causing the decline of the city and not just blame each other. Look, I have a lot of respect for the finance minister, but I was shocked to hear him say that the city depreciation is caused by speculation and directly blaming, Honorable MP Isaac Adongo and the minority for inciting people and businesses to buy dollars in order to do business. I think that it is true that speculation has a role to play when it comes to the strength of a nation's currency. But in our own case, Ben, in the case of Ghana, it's not only a problem of speculation. Inflation is a key factor that we need to address. it's affecting the strength of the city, in a way that if inflation is low, it increases the purchasing power of the city, which makes it more attractive to investors. But with Ghana's current inflation rate, it is a main reason why the value of the city is down. And so unless we manage inflation more effectively, we may not see any significant recovery of the city anytime soon, Ben. And we should also continue pursuing policies that are sound enough to stabilize the economy, to ensure that we have an interest rate that are set at levels, that would encourage business growth, and also ensure that we have good balance between our exports and exports. These are the main factors that we should deal with, to stop the city depreciation and not only speculation, as the minister was trying to allude to.
Any reflections on the 3 million children above 5 to receive Ghana cards, and then the EC and the transfer of votes, or can I move on?
As far as the kids above 5 years old, I think it's a step in the right direction, right? Even here in the U.S., the moment you have a child in the hospital, one of the paperwork that you fill that same day is a national identification card, which we call a social security card. It comes pretty handy, and it also helps the health authorities to plan as far as resource allocation and other health planning is concerned. So I think that is a step in the right direction.
All right. Kojo, thoughts on these stories?
Ben, sometimes I think that you would basically help by educating against certain things, not to make it look like, hey, Mr. Minister, you did this, so it'll be done to you. I don't think it's right. I mean, if there was anything about this, what we call political equalization, you yourself will help to educate that the politicians should stop doing that. I don't think it's fair for you to say that, oh, the Minister of Finance, when he was in opposition, did this, so now that it's done to him, he shouldn't complain. I think
you can't have different strokes for different folks. You can't do one thing and then,
you can, but
then when it goes against you, then you want other people to do. That is hypocrisy. That is hypocrisy.
No, I'm saying you as a media person, you as a host of a program, you educate against it, but you don't propagate it. That's what I'm saying.
I never propagated it. Let me correct. No, hold for me, Kojo. I never propagated it. If you listen to me carefully, what I said was, I agree with him. Yet, you must bear in mind, if you want to do these things, start with yourself. Is that not what I said? Start from home.
Yes, but you said
that's exactly what I said. So don't paint a picture as though I were propagating. That is a foul word to use for what I said. I never propagated it. I said, while agreeing with him, you can't, as politicians, keep shifting the goalposts. You do one thing and you expect to be treated differently.
Well, it's fine, but the point of the matter is that let's move on to the bit about the economy. Look, the economy has bounced back. The minister gave a very good press conference yesterday, and yes, we all know that when a currency is traded, and in Ghana, we run what you call a floating mechanism for our currency. So when something is traded, speculation play a big part. Even in New York, in Wall Street, what makes a share goes up or come down? Speculation is in part of it. Because the perception of whether a currency will do well, a perception of whether a commodity will do well, is speculation. It's an intangible process. So I think that when the minister comes out to say that, let's stop the speculation, because if you're looking at what actually drives, the minute there is a certain panic in the system, everybody rush to basically now convert their money into. And he's saying that, look, it doesn't augur well for all of us, so we should stop it. And I think it's the right advice to give. On the issue of the 3 million 5-year-olds that is supposed to get Ghana card, look, it's the second leg of the digitization drive that this government has. Not only are we saying that adults should have Ghana card, but let the young ones also have Ghana card so that when they get to voting age and age where they are going to get the bank accounts and all that, they already have the national identity number, which is the Ghana card number, which everybody should have. It will now be extended later to new. I think the newborn is done. The policy is that when you take a newborn to weigh in, at the weigh-in, you get a birth certificate number and a Ghana card number for a newborn. So you're looking at this policy to cover the entire population. So we'll start off with database. So we'll know the newborn, we'll know the death, And if we're able to link all these together, it will be good for our planning. So I don't think that there is an issue when it comes to national NHIS doing a lot of these things, and we would think that they might not have money. There's been proper planning that has gone into this. The dialysis cost that they've taken up is something very good that we should all champion, and also taking up the cost of the newborn. Because bear in mind, the Ghana card is now your NHIS card, so you don't need both. The reason that NHIS is taking on this is that now your Ghana card is your NHIS card. You don't need both. So it's a good thing to have a formalized economy. And I think we should all applaud them for the good work that Da Costa is doing.
All right, so let's quickly get into...
Quickly, right? Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Kofi, you have a reaction? Go ahead.
Quickly, Kojo, I work on Wall Street, right? So just to correct a point that you made, speculation is just one bit of the factors that you consider or you think about when you're thinking about economic growth, right? We always look at unemployment rate, we look at inflation rate, we look at exchange rate. So I don't think it is extremely accurate to focus only on speculation as the main
but nobody's focusing on. He said one of the things. Nobody said you are speculating. He said one of the things that affects is speculation. We all know the factors, the physical, the external and internal factors that affect our currency. We know that. But he mentioned speculation as one of the things that affect the currency.
And also, I read his statements also after he finished talking. He said the main impact, the main effect, right, the main cause, he attributed that to speculation, and I thought that was a little bit inaccurate.
All right, gentlemen, let's move this forward. I've seen some stories. Flooding in Greater Accra, policy gaps and recommendations. It's a story by Richard Akwa Harrison. It makes for interesting reading. It's on page 7. And now I hear those around is it the Kole calling for efforts, else once the rains start heavily, which they sometimes do, there's going to be trouble. As for, I always go back to the point that many years ago, sad development. This was around maybe, I could be wrong, I have to check again, 2012, 13 or 2010. A Canadian was betting that every year the Greater Accra region, Accra, would flood. And he was right, so they had to cancel the bet. They had to cancel that bet. Yeah. A Canadian betting on our agony. And indeed, if that company had allowed him to continue betting till today, he'd be winning every year. But anyway, some international stories and then we move on. France's far right celebrates lead, seeks majority. I have my own concerns about what's happening in France. Emmanuel Macron called for early elections. Now, France's far right is in pole position after the first round of parliamentary elections that confirmed their dominance in French politics and brought them to the gates of power. Supporters of Marine Le Pen's anti-immigration national rally, that is RN, cheered as she said the president's, quote, Macronist bloc had been all but wiped out. And RN won 33.1% of the vote, with a left-wing alliance behind on 28% and the Macron camp behind on 20.76%. And this is what Jordan Bardella said. I aim to be prime minister for all the French people if the French give us their vote. And the interesting thing here, the RN's party leader, who could become the next prime minister, can any of you guess how old he is?
Yes, 28 years.
28. It's just interesting.
Yes,
yesterday, years. I was mentioning this to Ben Dochimalo. I think, you see, our constitution, these are, when you say it, then people say, oh, but the constitution, no. These are some things that must change. When the times change over 3 decades, you must change with them. Across swathes of Europe and even in America, very young leaders, 40s, 30s, are being elected. We are still here stuck with, what we are stuck with. And I'm not denigrating. I always say I'm not engaging in ageism. But we need a certain level of thinking. Even recently, when Biden and Trump collided on the debate front, you saw some things in there. My thinking leans along the Democrats, right? I think Trump, I'm not a fan. I've never hidden that. But if you listened carefully, you would realize that age is a factor. And, but anyway, that one there. Let me just add this one. So it's an opinion by our very own Rodney Kroma Boateng. He says, has Kenya sparked a trend? When I read a bit of this, you should read that portion on page 10 of the Daily Graphic. It reminded me of the Arab Spring, which was started by the Jasmine Revolution or the Tunisian Revolution. These factors that sparked what we saw in Kenya are in so many African countries, including Ghana. It's not about, oh, let's go and demonstrate. No. How will our leaders respond, thinking and policy-wise? Those are my concerns. And then health. GJA at 75 Association organizes free health screening for journalists in Tema. Kudos to the GJA. Quick reflections. We say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper. I'll start with you, Kojo.
Yeah, thank you. I think on the drainage thing that you mentioned, you know, there was a very interesting point that came up. There was this American project to address the drains problem in Greater Accra, and there was a huge project, and they were supposed to be counterpart funded. Now, I think in 2015, 2014, there was a set amount of money that was available, and there was a choice between, I think, the overpass in Kasua and the Accra Drain Project. And the counterpart funding that the government at the time was supposed to bring for the Accra Drainage Project to match what the Americans were bringing in, the government said it didn't have money, but instead chose to do the Kasua overpass. I remember this very well because I was on 3 News one day and I mentioned the story. And you should see the call in from our friends and brothers and our family in Kasua saying that, Mr. Poku, how would you say that the overpass in Kasua is very important? So we chose Kasua overpass over the Accra drainage system. And that project was never done. The Americans brought the funding. Government did not find a counterpart funding for the drains in Accra. And we still have that problem today. So if somebody decided to bet on it, of course the person knows what they are betting on. Because every government, successive government, has failed to invest massively in the drainage problem in Accra. Okay? Let's move on to this Kenya issue. I think when you go on social media, you see people equating Ghana, and look, we have a different situation in Ghana. Yes, in any country, youth can rise up, but I beg to differ that Ghana is anywhere near to see what is happening in Kenya. Because if you look at the policies of the government in place, the government to come, Dr. Baumia's government, which is basically propagating a lot of his policies around the country, everything is geared towards bringing up standard of living, not basically tighten the tax screws around our neck, but releasing the burden. And everybody who is prepared to lead this government or prepared to lead Ghana should understand that Ghanaians now, if you try to ask more money from them, it's like drawing money from a rock. So look, I don't think we are in the same trajectory as Kenya. Our economy is doing much better than the Kenya economy. The austerities that we would have otherwise needed to come in 2025 had already gone through the IMF process, and we are basically doing well. So I beg to differ when people try to compare Ghana's situation and say, oh, can this happen in Ghana? No, it cannot happen in Ghana.
Kofi, your thoughts?
Ben, I heard that the far-right movement in France is estimated to see some notable success in elections, almost doubling what Macron's Renaissance Party is projected to reach. Look, I don't know much about this, but I'm not sure why far-right movements with all their anti-immigration and also nationalist posturing, I don't understand why they seem to be gaining grounds everywhere, from the U.S. to Europe. In my opinion,
it's scary, isn't it? It's scary, especially if you consider Marine Le Pen and everything that is happening in there. It's pretty scary.
No, but let me, I can spend a minute
Kojo, please.
why.
Kofi is on the floor now. Let him finish and then I'll come to you. Kofi?
And quickly, right, it might not be a very bad thing that they are surging, especially through the democratic process, and the voices of the voters must be respected. But I have concerns about their platform, right, when it comes to xenophobia and also discrimination.
Yeah.
Here in the U.S., we've heard such rhetorics from the right, such as immigrants poisoning the blood of America. And so when I think about that, I come to believe that far-right movements sometimes promote xenophobic and discriminatory ideologies. unfairly targeting immigrants like myself, right?
I agree with you.
And religious and also ethnic minorities and other marginalized groups. And I worry that the success may lead to increased discrimination and intolerance and social divisions within our society. That said, I think that Macron has no choice but to follow and respect the voices of the people in the interest of democracy. Now, quickly on Kenya, I will mention this quickly and I hand it over to you, Kujo. What President Ruto did, regardless of whether Ghana's economy is stronger than Kenya's economy, he listened to the people. He listened to the voices of the youth. There's been so many times that Ghanaians have spoken out against higher taxes that our leaders pretended that they couldn't even hear. There are a lot of things that are going on in Ghana today. There is a lot of incidences of sale of state properties that people speak out against, but nobody acts on it. It's like our leaders don't care about the voices of the people. So I'm not buying the whole argument that our economy is much better than theirs. It's about leadership, taking accountability, and also demonstrating that we can hear you, the average voter. I think that is more important than anything else.
Not to mention taxes, the very reason this finance bill for which the people went on demonstration, which sparked all of this. Kojo?
Yeah, quickly. You see, look, we need to go back into history 200 years, 300 years to understand why the nationalistic movements and the far-right movement are doing well. In the past, in history, the very reason for war, when communities were going to war, were to basically protect their territory and basically stop influx of people. That was the very reason. And one of the reasons was that they will go on to other lands to basically conquer and make it their own. This drive towards open borders, all-inclusiveness, has its downturn. So when you push that, it gets to a point when people tend to now resist. Now, the far right have movements that are very dangerous because of the minorities that they don't welcome. But we need to also the nationalistic nature of the human being. We can't downplay that. And if you look at across the world, how this plays out in most countries, it's history. And we are pushing the boundaries of humanity to the point when within we will start revolting against it. And that is why you see that. So we need to balance it. I think this whole thing of open borders for all and all those things will eventually get a pushback. And I think that's what's happening in Europe and other parts of the country.
Let's quickly get into other stories. My new focus, the new find of newspaper. $1 billion IPP's debt restructured. Parliamentary approval required to finalize amended terms. I've heard members of the minority say this is actually not the case. Bawumia reconciles Napo Wuntumi ahead of NEC decision on running mate, which is slated for Thursday, we are told. Let's scrap ex gratia. Backbin says so, those ex gratia payments. And I don't, for the life of me, understand why some people have been in office and every term they get ex gratia. But this is Ghana. Maybe time to right the wrongs. Gradual loss of trust for democratic rule calls for significant reforms. Francis Poku Esquire says so. So let's quickly get into some of those stories. I'll go to page 4 first and then head to page 8 for an additional 2 stories. Now, a former National Security Advisor, Mr. Francis Poku Esquire, has issued a stark warning about rising cases of corruption, youth unemployment, simmering internal conflicts, illegal mining, and geopolitical tensions, which he says are high alerts threatening Ghana's democratic stability. He predicted that Ghana risks facing, quote, another history if significant democratic reforms are not made by 2025. He warned, people are losing hope and gradually losing confidence in democracy. If the phase of democracy does not change after 2025, we're going to go through another history. I'm sure we understand what he's saying. Again, he gave the warning at the Republic Day lecture organized by One Ghana Movement on the topic Reflections on the Democratic Control over the Military, a way forward for sustainability at the Ghana Armed Forces Command Staff College in Accra. He referenced the 1979 revolution, emphasizing how warnings and advice to prevent it were ignored. Maybe the same way you say some things now, you say, oh, nah, we are not there. Okay. 3 years before the 1979 coup, we had predicted the revolution clearly, he said. If that advice had been heeded, Ghana would have been a different country by now. We were going through a period of what you call anocracy, when you have a strong person who knows how to get rid of the rules. So, when he is not there, all kinds of things open up, anger and factionalism come up again, and governments don't survive. I'll end here. He continued by citing the period after Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's coup, noting that governments did not last for more than 27 months until the 1992 Constitution. I guess here I will add the words of Jesus in the Bible. He who has ears, let him hear. Let's go to other stories. I'll head to page 8 now. And there we are. So $1 billion IPP's debt restructured. The government has successfully restructured $1 billion in legacy debt owed to independent power producers, marking a significant milestone in the country's energy sector reform efforts. The negotiations, spanning several months, focused on restructuring power purchase agreements and clearing arrears accumulated over years of financial strain in the sector. So you can talk about the key components, including revised payment terms and adjustments to contractual obligations. You can talk about capacity charges. You can also talk about the 12 billion Ghana cedi capacity charges in 4 years. Then, flag bearer of the MPP, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is working hard for an easy endorsement of his running mate, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, at the National Executive Council meeting. After presenting the name of the running mate to the president, the Majority Caucus, and the national executives, he has also reconciled Dr. Prempeh and the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the party, Bernard Intribu Esiako, commonly referred to as Chairman Wuntumi. Of course, we know of a certain Apia Kubi who came out openly and said, well, this running mate thing, and some members supposedly of the minority end in parliament. But who are we? Who are we? So let them reflect on it, and we'll see how things pan out. Quick thoughts, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Kojo.
Well, even Jesus Christ did not get the 100% of the people that basically he came to die for. Those very people who sang hallelujah and hosanna at the gates of Jerusalem were the same people who said crucify him at the end of the day. So nobody is perfect and nobody can get 100% support from everybody. As a party, our flag bearer has nominated Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh as his running mate, and we will all support that decision and basically go ahead and win this election. The election is boots on the ground. It's a 275 constituencies that needs to go through in less than 150 days. We need a set of more than 4 people to canvass the country to do that. And Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, being a young, energetic individual, will come on board with the energy to match the energy of the flag bearer to do that. Anybody else who doesn't agree, yes, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of things we don't agree with, even our own household, but we still live with them. So let's move on. The IPP negotiation, okay, it's a good thing. It's to create space in the environment so that ECG will be able to meet its bills. We've always talked about the agreements, the power purchase agreements that were signed, that for us in the long term need to be sanitized. And this exercise is to be able to sanitize it, and the IPPs will be able to get some level of liquidity. There's no point having an agreement that the person who you have the agreement with is difficult to meet that obligation, be it is an agreement that's been signed and is binding. So I think the consensus is like, look, there's a thing where it's called leave and let's leave, okay? Yes, I have signed the agreement, but looking at the prevailing environment, can we all live together? And I think that renegotiation is a win-win for everybody. They want their money to work, and I think that is a good thing. The committee that I chair, the Energy and Petroleum Committee, which is the manifesto committee for Dr. Bawumia, has looked at a wide range of issues that will come in to further improve the sector. And we think that when given the chance, we will basically be able to improve this for Ghanaians to have affordable quality power going forward. What other issue is there?
That's it. Let me come to Kofi. Quick thoughts. We have to go.
But on the choice of Bawumia's running mate, or generally the choice of a presidential running mate, I think it's a serious business for any candidate. More so in this current state of Ghana's distressed economy, especially when it comes to solid leadership. So I don't think it should be more about the tribe of the potential running mate, but rather about competence and how well that person connects with the people. Look, I don't know Dr. Prempeh very much, but here's what I know. Ben, first impressions are super important. The first time I watched him speak, all I saw is, and I don't mean to sound offensive to anyone, right? But all I saw when I first witnessed Dr. Opoku Prempeh speak is I saw arrogance and lack of accountability. And here's why. The man was asked about doing so and the need to provide a timetable. The way he answered the question, he even questioned the rationale of asking for a timetable.
Right.
And I think that's very disrespectful to the average Ghanaian who is on the receiving end of doing so. It shows a lack of touch with reality.
Right.
And out of this world disdain for the plight of the very people whose vote you need and a complete abandonment of duty.
Right.
Complete lack of accountability, not an ounce of it. You will recall that this man, he tried to put a spin on Doomsaw and called it Doomsiesie. We need leaders who will have the interests of the people at heart.
Okay.
Maybe I should take more time to get to know him, right? But if I should go by first impressions, the man sounds like, and he acts like Ghanaians owe him an apology for something. For what? I don't know, right?
All right.
I had a majority leader, and Kojo also just
But
mentioned
Kofi, if you don't know
Kofi,
him, let's
Kofi, you have to wrap on. You have to wrap on
time.
that point so we can go. Kofi,
Well,
please wrap
that's
on that
fine,
point.
but
so
you see, in one breath, he says he doesn't know him.
Let him wrap on the point, please. Kofi,
okay.
wrap on the point. Let's go.
Look, all that I wanted to say is that, Kojo, you mentioned this, and a majority leader in parliament also mentioned this, that folks should be circumspect in the way they criticize him. But it's also important that we speak truth to power, what we say without fear, right? This is what I saw. This is what a lot of Ghanaians that I have talked to, you know, this is what they see. A level of arrogance when the man was, I think it's
Okay,
the energy
Kofi.
minister or something.
Yeah, so I think your point is made. 20 seconds, Kojo.
Well, I'm saying that, look, in one breath, he says he doesn't know him. Yes, first appearance is important.
He says he doesn't know him enough.
Again,
He says he doesn't know him
he
enough.
doesn't know him enough. Yes, exactly. So he wants to get to know him. I think he should leave it there, get to know him, and
Okay,
basically
all right.
take it from there.
All right.
I think that judging somebody that far from afar is not the best.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for having joined the conversation. No responses to this. I'll just leave you with the headlines from the Daily Guide. Freddie Blaze, user Blackwire and Media General. IGP leaked tapes, Superintendents Asare and Jibi lied. That's according to the report. Malam arrested for suspected ritual killing, and SNIT assures continued stakeholder engagement. Well, thank you so much for joining the conversation. William, Wisdom, hey, my word, Wisdom Kofi Dogbe, my apologies, Wisdom Kofi Dogbe.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Financial analyst. And Kojo, do you have an English name?
Yes, Francis.
Francis Kojo Poku.
Francis Kojo in Safwa Poku.
Ah, in Safwa I know, but the Francis I think I've forgotten.
Francis, yes. Me and the Pope, we are all in the same category.
Okay, so Francis Poku Esquire was speaking yesterday, and today we've spoken to Francis Poku.
Another Francis Poku,
well,
yes, most definitely.
Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helped us bring you this segment. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma Boy here behind the Angel Educational Complex, the Stakra Dianaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Siamanzima. You can actually call them on these numbers: 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next. Do stay for that.
End of truth is finally here.
Ladies and gentlemen, with a standing ovation, the woman of the moment, Miss Eunice Asiedu Ejipon.
This was the moment Eunice Asiedu Ejipon was declared winner of the second edition of the Joy News Impact Makers Awards. Scores of pupils have gathered in front of their classrooms singing to welcome their teacher, 26-year-old Eunice Asiedu Ejipon, back to school. It has been 72 hours since she was crowned the winner of the 2024 Impact Makers Awards, and the excitement on the children's faces is unmistakable. 4 years ago, Eunice arrived in this community to find a non-existent school. Rather than seeking a transfer, she stayed, collaborating with the local pastor and traditional leaders to transform a church into a makeshift school. Starting with just 7 pupils in that church building, the school's enrollment has soared to 125 pupils in 6 months and now boasts 9 trained teachers.
In fact, as the Bible has stated that we should try.
Here at the Noka MA Basic School, I've met Reverend Prince Obusin Tiamwa, founder of the Maranatha Power Ministries International, who generously offered his church to begin this educational journey. He credits Eunice as a pivotal force in this endeavor and expresses his gratitude to Joy News for recognizing her efforts.
She has done great work for her. She's the one who started the school. She came to me that they want to start a new school here, so how can I help her? So I'm the one who registered the children, and after she has come, then I give the names and then the little amount that we'll be receiving to her, and she did everything correctly.
Okay. So previously there was no school?
No, there was no school here. I told my church members that I wanted to start a daycare for the children, and so for the chief's intervention and then the assemblyman said that it will be prudent for us that we start a new school here. And Eunice is the one who came here, and I helped her. So the two of us started registering them and do everything before the staff came in, because all the children here go to Damai school, and it is very risky for the children by crossing the road. It was very so. We thought it was that it would be good for us to start a school here. So for the meantime, I should give my church for them so that they use it. Meanwhile, the MP and then the assembly people came. We have started a school building there, but it's not completed. So that's what I sacrificed this school for them, to use for a while. Oh, I feel great. I was very delighted that as a new school like this, they have appointed one of our members to that award. So I was very happy about it. It is helping a lot because most of the children were not going to school. So after we have started this school, all of the people have brought their children here, and it is really helping them. At times you see the the children roaming in town, doing nothing. But as the school started, all of them has come to this school. All that I want to say that they should help us. We have a lot of things to accomplish. The school is not it is not roofed, and mostly we don't have furniture for the children. So this is a big tax. So if Joy FL can help us by sending our petition to the government for him to also come and see us.
Secretary to the Noka Town Development Committee, James Siaokwachi, shares his appreciation for the blessings that Joy News and Eunice Ejipon have brought to their community.
Eunice has been a great help to this school. When we started, she was the only teacher here. She mobilized the children before the Ministry of Education sent some teachers here. So she has been very, very helpful to this school. Joy News has been a blessing, I would say, to the whole nation. They have been helping us in diverse ways. So what I would say is that they should continue doing their great work.
My name is Jase Amako.
Jase Hene of Noka, Nana Amako appeals for the completion of a new school building, acknowledging the honor Eunice has brought to their community. He says we recognize her efforts in helping to start a school here in this community. She mobilized the children and ensured they attended school. The traditional authorities and the elders of the community acknowledge her contribution. God bless her and give her long life. We will never forget her good work, he said.
abayo na se yebo na bas US news so yebo abaso say won so senior wata abawo achi ma abayo no ba school no obugu school no wodi na achi ama enei won so won aba na abaso no yenso yebo won abaso say won ayama abayo no yeda won ase say won so won atew abayo anim na aka yen no ka fo mpan ne ene o man nyina yenso yeda won ase.
Classes are in full swing with Eunice diligently teaching the pupils. Under Miss Ejipon's leadership, the Noka MA Basic School offers education from kindergarten to basic 6. Eunice says she has started receiving calls from NGOs and philanthropists eager to support the community right after she won the Joy News Impact Makers Award.
It's also, I feel excited after the awards and coming back to work with the kids, their smiles. At least I feel overwhelmed that at least what I was doing in the dark, it has come to light, and looking at the smiles on the kids, I am so excited, super excited. The future is bright. The future is bright, and I know we have a lot of big men and women in them. So with them schooling, I'm hoping to see in the next future big doctors, engineers, teachers, and probably presidents, ministers, and peace in them. Okay. With this award, I know it's a nice initiative, and it will help in terms of giving us teaching and learning materials. I said, Joy News, I am so grateful. I thank you so much, but I wasn't expecting, but God being so good, and with the Joy News Impact Makers, I was being nominated. I feel happy, surprised, because I have been receiving calls from all over the country, and I say thank you to the multimedia group. I say thank you so much. May God bless you.
You've been receiving a lot of calls from
NGOs, philanthropists, even individuals who want to support in making this smiles on this case. So.
Already you started receiving calls from
Yes,
NGOs.
Please. I have received calls, and I'm still counting.
A resident near the Noka Basic School, Diana Aremia, testifies to her daily hard work in educating the children. She notes that this effort has reduced the risk of children who previously had to cross a busy road to attend school in an adjoining community.
It has helped reduce the danger of our children crossing the busy highway to go to school. The school has saved many lives, and we are grateful to her, the pastor, and the traditional authorities. She has done very well. I used to observe her from here. She was doing it alone, but she put in a lot of effort and did it well. Over 100 children. She did well. Joy News has also done well. God bless you for remembering the Noka community.
Me back room had 11 years. Yeah, but I'm banner crew we 96. Yeah, but I say no. Me was say school never has improvement never yet. Yeah, because of that.
The waters flow from the Brie area through many communities such as Aveno, Circle, and Graphic Road downstream into the Koli Lagoon. Along its pathway are mostly sand and filth. These elements hinder the smooth flow of the waters. The country is ranked highly among African countries that are most exposed to risks from multiple weather-related hazards. Those who live near these areas and constantly bear the brunt of the flood's impact are asking for big rubbish bins while they constantly look out for dredging equipment. Grace Gavo and Nana Kwame live and work at Aveno.
Oh, it's now 18 years to 19 years. Oh, so third year. I
have lived in this area for the past 18 years. I have lost count of my property that has been swept away whenever it rains because the floods render us homeless. My wish is to relocate, but I can't pay the rent in other parts of the city which do not get flooded. We plead with government to constantly dredge the lagoon so that it does not overflow when it rains.
By last 3-4 years in by 2024 year.
When the rain falls continuously, the water overflows its banks, and the force is strong enough to wash vehicles away. When it happens like that, we have to run for our lives. And with the onset of the rains, I plead with authorities to quickly act, or we will not hear good news.
At the Odo market, traders are quick to remind us of the awful memories they have of the June 3rd fire and flood disaster that led to the loss of about 150 lives.
When I am out of the house and it rains, I get very scared. I wish the wall would be extended upwards a bit. I believe that will help us a lot.
To curb similar related events and to build resilience against perennial flooding in Accra, $675 million is needed that will enhance flood protection regime along the Odo Basin and also re-engineer drains, remove obstructive materials, and implement a performance-based dredging program, according to the stakeholders. But that money is not available. Aisha and some others who spoke to Joy News say they've been hoping for the drains to be dredged so that their property, which are always washed away whenever the area floods, will cease. This corn mill operator shares his experience during every raining season.
We have to dismantle our corn mill machine and equipment whenever it rains heavily. We fear for our lives because when it floods, live electrical cables falls into the stagnant waters, which electrocutes people when they get into contact with the water. Sometimes people even die as a result. We are compelled to climb up the stalls and stay there until the water dries up. We plead with authorities to raise the walls surrounding the Odo.
And as we were filming, the rains set in. Traders briskly begin to pack their wares to safety. They are not happy about the situation and have one common plea.
Last 3 months, a meeting.
3 months ago, the authorities held a meeting with us, and they told us they would dredge the drains. I hope that they will fulfill their promise.
However, likely get an immediate response, as the Works and Housing Minister Kojo Pong-Kroma acknowledged on the Pulse on the Joy News channel in April this year that his office is behind schedule on flood control program.
I have inherited a flood control program that is behind schedule. As I've told you, even what we are doing is just about 2% of what we should be doing in the Greater Accra region.
The last time we checked, the amount of money involved runs into billions of cedis.
It's $200 million. So yes, if you do the conversion, it will run into billions. It's a $200 million project funded by the World Bank. That's a Garrett project. But what has actually been released or spent is not up to $200 million.
On the flip side, though, are some assurances from the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Titus Glover. He says a plan exists to desilt all gutters.
The assemblies, that is their responsibility. All the drains around, we need to desilt it and make sure any little downpour, the water will just flow.
As to when the promise will be fulfilled or the flooding situation permanently addressed, those affected by the negative impact of the rain continue to find alternatives to stay alive and to secure their property whenever the clouds gather.
You see, it just started raining. We are packing off our stuffs. We get scared whenever it's about to rain. We can't watch on for the rain to wash us away. Authorities do not care because they have safe places to live with their families. They are supposed to dredge and clear the odor for free flow of the water.
For Joy News, I am Hannah Odami.
Welcome back on the AM show. And that story brought to us by Hannah Odami is quite touching. But let's get on the phone now and speak to Florence Kuji. She's in charge of public health at the AMA. And let's find out the way forward, how we can actually make some pathway, especially because the flood is not over. Madam Florence, good morning and thanks for joining the program.
Good morning, my dear. Please, how are you? And thank you for having me.
I'm great. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you follow the entire story, but students and traders are demanding some immediate dredging of drains at the Kole Lagoon, Odo, and other places here in Accra. First of all, what is the plan of the AMA to tackle these issues?
Okay, thank you very much, my sister. So, you know, AMA is the beneficiary of the Garrett project. And the Garrett project is along the Odo, all assemblies along the Odo Road from High Street to the down street. So the Odo Lagoon is undergoing dredging. But what I would say is, yes, the Odo Lagoon is undergoing dredging. But everybody must play a part in it. Sanitation is not one-man business. It is a holistic business. It is an all-hands-on-deck business. As much as the government or AMA is playing their part to drain or to dredge or desal the drains along the Odo River and all other internal drains to prevent flooding, what does the citizen supposed to do? A citizen is supposed to register with an accredited waste collection company or a corporation, a tricycle waste collection person. But they refuse to do that, my dear. People will heap refuse in their houses. And when it is raining, that is the time they will dispose of the refuse into the drain because they think the rain will wash it away. Forgetting that you may be at the higher or the upper stream, but you have a relative downstream. And at the end of the day, everything comes back to square one.
Madam Florence,
yes.
We had a series, Filth Exhibition, on this channel where we went out to see how residents, communities, and even some institutions were managing their waste. One of the things, or the highlights of all the people that I personally spoke to, was that they didn't have access to rubbish bins and proper waste disposal system. So, for example, the Aladuna community right behind the president's house, they said they don't have access to these cars, Zoom line, whatever. So the only way out is for them to dump the rubbish into the gutter. And so I get the problem that the picture of the problem that you're painting. So how do we tackle it from there? Because it starts from there. It starts from the management of our waste.
Yes. So, you know, in 2002, Ghana launched the producer pay system. It means when you produce the waste, you must cater for it to ensure that it ends at the right place. It is the duty of every waste producer to acquire yourself a waste bin. It is the duty of every waste producer to identify the waste collection company around the vicinity that they are living. Because every assembly or every zone has a waste collection company. And they have to reach areas. There are tricycles that are being assigned to those areas. So it is the duty of the person who is creating the waste to ensure that I get somebody to give my waste up to. That is why it is a criminal offense when you burn the waste or when you dispose waste through the drain and an environmental officer gets you. You get to the court, and if you are not lucky, you can end up in prison not less than 3 months. It is a criminal offense to indiscriminately dispose of. So when you produce it, it's your duty to so that the waste ends the right at the proper place at the proper time. But so that we are.
Madam Florence, you have to reposition. You're breaking up.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Is it better?
Yes, let's try again. You were saying.
So what I was saying, producer systems that you must cater for it to get to the appropriate place. It is supposed to get things.
Oh, I'm sorry I have to do this again. You're breaking up. She was just trying to tell us about that it's a crime to not have proper waste management if you produce waste. We will try to reconnect her and then get the trust of her presentation or submission. That was Madam Florence Kuji, the public health, in charge of public health at AMA, and we're just talking about the impact of flooding, especially here in the Greater Accra region, and some residents and traders are demanding some dredging of some drains. I'm talking about the Kole Lagoon area, Odo River, and thereabouts. And Madam Florence was just saying that it is a responsibility of every citizen to manage your waste properly. Let's get back on the phone with her and connect. Madam Florence, you were saying that it is a crime, and if you are caught by the environmental agents, you can face up to 3 years imprisonment. That's where I lost
3 months, not less than 3 months in
right,
prison.
Thanks for the correction.
Because,
3 months.
Yes, it is a criminal offense to indiscriminately dispose your waste outside. So it is the duty of the person who is producing the waste to acquire a dustbin. It is not the assembly that is supposed to give you a dustbin. Okay. The dustbins that the waste collection company give them is just something that they are just trying to help. But it is the duty of everyone who produces waste to get a waste bin. After getting the waste bin, it is your duty to identify a waste collection company around where you are so that you can register for them to collect your waste. Because you are not supposed to dispose of your refuse in the open. Even the dustbins that you are going to use, there are standards. You must get a dustbin that has a fitting lid that can cover the waste properly to prevent it from spilling off, or to prevent animals from scavenging inside it to let the waste spill off. So all these things are in place. It is criminal offense, but Ghanaians always want to shift all the blame on the regulator or the regulating body. As I said earlier on, sanitation or waste management is a collective effort. The government plays her part, and the citizens also plays their part.
All right. So on that point, that government plays their part, the citizens also play their part. Especially when you go to the market, they pay some fees for AMA, for waste management. So I want you to draw the line for me or paint the picture. What is the responsibility of the government then? You've already painted a picture of what citizens are supposed to do. Acquire your own bins, identify a waste collection company to come and take your waste. So where does the government come in? And where do those monies go?
So the duty of the government is to ensure that they procure an accredited waste collection company for people within, so that you can be able for easy accessibility of citizens to access the waste collection company. It is the duty of the government to ensure that there is a landfill somewhere that the waste collection, accredited waste collection company, when they pick the waste, they can then have a proper disposal. Because in Ghana, we are not yet at the circular economy. We are trying as much as to even come into the waste segregation system. Let's say, let's use the two stream, the wet and the dry waste. So when we get that, so the government needs to ensure that we create the awareness, we educate the people, which we are doing. The government is doing it. Not just today, it has been on. Now, when you come to AMA, we are starting with the waste the source segregation. So you must segregate your waste from source. Even now, the waste collection companies that the government is procuring, we ensure that if you are not well versed in the source segregation, the contract will not be given to you. So they are also trying to also back up what they are doing. So this is what the government is doing. It is the duty of the citizens to also ensure that you separate your waste so that the waste will be collected. You don't lump sum the waste, because when we separate the waste, it reduces the volume of the waste that is going to the landfill site. That is another thing. We
will talk about the impact on our public health in a bit, but I just want to probe something you just said a few moments ago. You said the government is responsible for awareness creation and to ensure that there's a land site or landfill somewhere where they can, as in the final destination final
landfill site.
Yes. Would you say that the government is actually delivering on this mandate? Is there enough public education on this? And do we actually have these sites well demarcated where people are aware? And I'm saying this also on the back of, I went to also in our series Filth Exhibition, somewhere around Staff College. People live there, but these tricycle waste operators, the Aboboya waste collectors, that's where they dump the waste when they collect them, which is illegal, I think. So would you say that the government is actually delivering on their mandate?
Yes. So gone were the days when the Aboboyas were operating in an isolated environment. So when we realize that this is what the Aboboya people are doing, now we are putting them into cooperatives. So every Aboboya has been placed under a cooperative at the assembly in which the person is operating. And with the cooperative, your tricycle is given a cooperative embossment with a number, with the assembly attached to it. So we are still educating the people. Before you give your waste to an Aboboya who does not have a cooperative embossment on it, you do not give. So now we are giving the Aboboya people also training. We are taking them through a lot of training, awareness creation, and a lot of in-service training. So now you can see that they are even doing better than they used to do formerly.
Okay. So obviously there are challenges in waste management in this country, and I'm not limited it to just the Greater Accra region. The impact of this on our health cannot be underestimated. I'm talking about malaria. I got one recently, and it was not an easy thing at all. How in the interim, I mean, while these challenges are being addressed as we go, what is the plan to actually tackle the impacts that this waste management or the way we are managing our waste is having on our health?
Okay, it all boils back still to the human beings, between the regulator and then the citizen themselves. So it's still the education. It is not just only malaria that one can get from waste. You can also get typhoid fever. You can also get diarrhea. You can also get cholera through this. There are a lot of series of these that one can get through, because if you live with waste, there are a lot of things that can come out from the waste. And even it can also lead to flooding. So there are a series of public health that waste management or improper waste management can bring on board to a public health. So what we are saying is, as a citizen, ensure that you have a standard waste collection bin. Ensure that you register with an accredited waste collection company. If you are at a place hard to reach, ensure that the accredited waste collection company that you are engaging, they will give you a tricycle personnel. That is why we have this, they call the ESPA. They have the Environmental and Sanitation Providers Association, where these Aboboya people belongs to. So every waste collection company that has trucks and they are portion, there's a hard-to-reach area. That is where they then dedicate these tricycle people to go inside to the hard-to-reach areas to bring the waste and then bring it to a place we call a transfer station, where the waste will then be collected from there to the final disposal site. Because looking at the distance from Accra to the final disposal site, that is why almost all the assemblies are now creating what we call the transfer station, where these tricycles will go into the interland to go and bring the waste and come and segregate them at a place. Then the final truck will send them to the final disposal site.
My final question to you, Madam Florence, is how do you think we are faring on the journey or our quest to be, as the President said, for Accra to become one of the cleanest cities in Africa? How do you think we are faring on that?
In fact, Accra will surely become one of the cleanest cities in Africa because we have moved a step. If you look around, how Accra used to be, a lot of things have changed. And I can bet you, I have friends that live abroad, and when they come and they see things within Accra, they applaud that Accra is neat.
What has changed?
We are doing
what has changed?
You know,
give me some specifics, Madam Florence. What has changed? You said a lot of things have changed.
Yes, a lot of things have changed. For instance, let me say, people used to litter all over. But now it is reducing. It is not as how it used to be. People used to burn indiscriminately. It is reducing. Education is going. People are changing their behavior. Attitude now is being changed towards waste management. And we are also making people to know that waste is not just waste, but waste is wealth in transit. If you segregate your waste, you are going to get some economic income out of the waste. And with this, changes are going on. When you go to so many schools, they used not to do waste segregation. But now, a lot of people are doing waste segregation. And the number of waste that used to go to the landfill site or the number of plastics that used to go to the landfill site has reduced. So a lot of things are going on. But maybe you can see waste on the ground, but it is not as huge as it used to be. For instance, Greater Accra Metropolitan Assembly, every day, we are able to transport 80% of waste generated within the metropolis to the landfill site. Formerly, it used not to be like that. So it is increasing.
How many people have been prosecuted so far for breaching these directives and laws?
So far, in Accra Metropolitan Assembly, for the first quarter, we have prosecuted not less than 60 people. But when you are prosecuting a lot of people, it means people are not complying. The lesser the prosecution, the higher the compliance. But last year, for the first quarter, we prosecuted almost 100 people within the first quarter. But this year, it has reduced. It means a lot of people are complying to the education and then the awareness that we are giving, that it's not change that we are asking them to change.
Are you saying that last year you prosecuted? Are you saying that last year you prosecuted over 100 and this year you prosecuted only 60? Just to get the figures right.
I'm saying that the lesser the prosecution, the higher the change of attitude. And the higher the prosecution, the lesser the change of attitude. You know, prosecution becomes the last bit. We educate you, then when you don't go by it before we prosecute you. There used to be a lot of, what would I say, the top five nuisances that we used to count. One used to be indiscriminate dumping of refuse, burning of refuse, and then other things. But now it has changed again to a different thing. Now the most issue we are now having in town is food safety. That is the most issue that we are now battling with. But as for the waste, best practice on waste management, it is declining. People are grappling it bit by bit.
The numbers, are you saying that it is not actually the case that perhaps you're not being proactive and not catching people in the act, and so you're not actually seeing them, to catch them and prosecute them, but rather it's because people are adhering to your directives and...
No, please. If you ask any practicing environmental health officer, the person will tell you that the lesser the prosecution, the higher the compliance. The higher the prosecution, the lesser the compliance. When people are not complying, a lot of people are being sent to court for prosecution. But when they start complying, prosecution rate becomes lower.
All right. So there's an issue about, you know, plastic, and we know that it makes up the majority of the waste these days. And the way to actually deal with it is to recycle. What is the AMA's plan to tackle plastics or recycle plastic to reduce the number of plastic on the surface of the planet?
Yes, so AMA have identified some recycling companies, local recycling companies that they are working with them, and they are helping them in with tools and other things. We are giving them training to ensure that we encourage them to do the best, to increase. It used to be lower. Even now, they used to do it in a way that could even have a health impact on them themselves. Now, AMA is giving them protective clothing, and we are regulating them. We are assuring that they do it to the best, that at the end of the day, they are not harming themselves while trying to clean the environment. So these are some of the things AMA is trying to put in place, not just only AMA, but all assemblies within the Gamma.
Florence Kuji, thank you so much for joining us. She's Director for Public Health at the AMA. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right, there's still more coming your way on the AM show. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is a test, and I believe we must all respond to this call, that if the face of democracy does not change, after 2025, we are going to go through another history. And it must be a collaborative effort. Because I am telling you authoritatively, people are losing confidence in democracy. And there is a reaction, oh, we can consider for crying.
Quite a number of the oversight institutions have failed to deliver. And when Mr. Poku talks about the threats that we are facing, there are more internal threats than those that emanate from the outside. We don't want to talk about that because it's uncomfortable. We are increasingly seeing, and I like Mr. Poku's example of Ashama, in which Parliament was fantastically silent. But not only that, there have been lots of instances where Parliament ought to have spoken, but has not.
Some of the things we're criticized for, we have done our part as a committee. You must have read the Ashaman report. I mean, it's been released. We ask that those who were brutalized be compensated. I mean, and those who abused their offices, their power, be sanctioned. We did that. But the problem now is, would the leadership prioritize security matters in Parliament? I think these are matters that ought to be reported to the Speaker.
We know that elections are usually, election security is usually managed by the police and led by the police, with the military coming in to support as allied agencies. But what we saw in 2020, I believe, was alarming. And I really would like us to have this conversation on redefining the role of the military in elections. We know the military is needed. How and what role they play is critical, and a conversation that we must have to define properly their scope and their role when it comes to elections.
I say it with a regret and with a very, very stern face that the military have no business supporting any political party, whether in government, during elections or after elections. Your job is to stand in the middle and make sure that the people of Ghana have the government they have voted for. That's your job. Do your work and let the politicians do their politics.
So there you have it, the One Ghana group putting together this bit. And yesterday, the entire talk about the loss of democracy and everything in between. Well, we have our guests joining the conversation this morning. And we'll first introduce Professor Bafo Ajimandria. He joins the conversation. He's formerly been with the UN, a governance expert. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, my good friend.
It's a pleasure having you join the conversation. I'll quickly get on to the other guest when it is possible to do so. But I'll start with you, Prof. I'm sure you followed this bit about the loss of confidence in Ghana's democracy, as per Francis Poku Esquire and the other speakers who yesterday interacted on some of these matters. They say it's a threat to our democracy, that it feeds into the corrupt society we've built and political recruitment, among others. But what are your initial thoughts on this entire event held yesterday? Let's start from there.
Thank you. Fortunately, I was able to participate in the conference yesterday. So I had the opportunity of listening to Mr. Francis Poku, his insights on the security situation in the country and what we need to do to ensure stability as we move forward. And I think one thing he said that struck me very much was the fact that, first of all, I agree with him because it's an issue that I've been broaching over the years, that our democracy is inherently contradictory to certain things that we desire. So his point was simply that people have lost confidence in democracy. And by the way, he himself said, it's not new, it's across the world. Previously, there were some expectations that, of course, after you live under a long period of dictatorship, period of military rule around the world, I think all of us were very euphoric about the change that came towards the early 90s, not only in Ghana, but across the globe, especially in Africa. But I think after 30 years or so of this practice, certainly there are some serious challenges that we need to look at closely to see if we can bring some energy, some new vigor in the way we practice democracy. But let me be clear. There is no problem with democracy per se. In fact, as everybody will tell you, it's not the best form of government. But unfortunately, there's no alternative to democracy at the moment. So what every society has to do is to look at the practice side of democracy, not the principle side. And for the principle side, it's universal. All of us love liberties and our freedoms and all. But the practice side is where I think Africa needs to rethink this democratic experiment that we are having here. You see, the practice of it has been corrupted, not only in terms of monetary things that we talk about, corruption, people stealing money, which is real, but it has also been corrupted politically, political corruption. And that's part we seldom even talk about. Because when you have leadership that is insensitive to the needs of people, to certain critical development elements that we need to address, and we are not getting that attention. You see, what happened in Kenya recently is a reflection of this conversation that you're having this morning, that over the years, the young people in particular have realized that the leadership that they've been having in African countries has not been the right one, because they are being deprived of their future, because governments have been mortgaging this future through all kinds of reckless policies and actions. So in simple terms, the expression of Mr. Poku yesterday at the end of it was that after 2025, after this election, that is by 2025, Ghanaians should begin to look carefully and critically at how we review the practice democracy that we have to ensure that we can have a sustainable stability in the country. So if you ask me, as I said yesterday at the meeting, in the 90s, early 90s, we thought that security agencies, particularly the military, was going to be a threat to our democracy. But today, as I speak to you, I think it is our politics. It's our politics that poses that threat to democracy.
Well, thank you very much for those initial thoughts, and definitely later I'll be coming to you about Kenya and what has happened there and whether it resonates in any way with what we're seeing. But let me bring in Professor Kwesi Aning into the conversation. He is director, so he is actually one offering bespoke services in risk assessment analysis and forecasting. Prof, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
I know you're far away in Mombasa, and it's been hectic for you. So we're very grateful that you took the time to join us this morning. We're grateful for your time. Your initial thoughts on this event held yesterday, One Ghana collaborating with the military to have this Republic Day event. Your initial thoughts?
No, for me, I think it's a reflection of the recognition for a wider conversation.
Right.
The form our democracy has taken, the quality, the gaps, the challenges. But it was also quite insightful that they chose a senior statesman who has seen it all to lay the issues on the table. And I concur with my senior brother Bafo in terms of his interpretation of what Mr. Poku said. But he also made this statement that, time is running out and that we needed to get to grips with the detail. And his phrase was that, the devil is always in the detail. So although we focused on the military, Mr. Poku also brought in the National Security Strategy document and the hierarchy of threats that document identified. And some of us were arguing that those threats and the hierarchies would need to be subjected either to a quarterly evaluation or assessment to be able to see the most important ones that we needed to focus on. But it was also about the processes and procedures towards resourcing the military to be able to do what they want to do. There was a general consensus about the unnecessarily politicized spaces in our country. That now almost no conversation or action can be had without being examined through a partisan lens. And I like 2 points that the military itself made. One was about giving it a voice to be able to express itself. And that was something that I had said that was picked up on. You cannot have about, I don't know the strength of the army right now, probably 2,000 or so decently armed people who do not have appropriate channels of engaging in the conversation in a manner that they think reflects their contributions, their thoughts, and their expertise. That is one. The second was a concern, I think, expressed by the Director of Training about the quality of the external influences. How do people coming from the outside want to shape the conversations around our own perceptions of what our threats are? So from where I said the conversation was useful, and I think Bafo took us back almost 24 years ago about some of the work that the CDD did in trying to establish a certain basis for having conversations around civil-military relations. Because if you remember, in the immediate aftermath of the Rawlings handover of power, there were still tensions and misunderstandings between the uniformed forces and the civilian populace. That we are still seeing those tensions re-emerging, from Edra, Ashaman, and other places. So there is still a lot of work that we need do. But yesterday's conversation was a very useful start.
Let me come to you, Professor Bafo Adjumandrea, on this point. Now, you would hear Francis Poku lamenting democracy from different angles, and it's the same question I'll pose to Professor Kwesi Aning. The bit about governance issues, regime security versus human security. And why do I mention that? He makes mention of corruption. He makes mention of rife unemployment. He makes mention of illegal mining and the pitfalls of all of these. How crucial, what is the impact of these in Ghana today from where you sit? And have there been any remedial measures over the last few years? You look at the latest Human Development Report in Ghana, the multidimensional poverty indices from the Ghana Statistical Service. They make for stark reading. And interestingly, he adds that if these are not dealt with, we could have another history. Interpret it as you will. What is your reading of those? I'll start with you, Professor Adjumandrea.
Right. First of all, let me admire Kwesi. We were together last night. I didn't know he was going to fly last night to be in Mombasa this morning. Very interesting, Kwesi. Anyway, I think the problem here, and that's why people say our constitution has helped us for 30 years and therefore there's no need to tinker with it. I get a little bit puzzled. You see, we have succeeded in changing political parties, governments. We have succeeded with what we call the power alternation. For the past 30 years, the Constitution has ensured that for us. Then after we elect governments, we go to sleep. We think that's all democracy. In between elections, what happens in terms of focusing on our development as a people? So the issue of human development, if you bring in those threats that Mr. Poku, raised, and the behavior of politicians or leadership, if you put all that together, then you have to question what is it that we are doing wrong? Because, and I think when the foreign commentators praise Ghana for our democracy and our progress, wherever, I can understand that. Because for them, once there's no coup and we are having elections, that's all. But for developing countries like Ghana, in Africa generally, that should not be the end of it. So
you're also admitting, Prof, that sometimes the rhetoric of these international groupings, who are not on the ground, they may just feed off data and make claims. Recently, for example, there was that claim that Ghana was, I think, the 5th most stable in terms of a number of democratic credentials in Africa, rule of law and all of that. People felt very differently. Do you feel that these institutions in themselves sometimes are not objective enough?
Of course, they are never objective. They cannot be because they do not live in the situation. It's just like the World Bank, IMF, or economists will come and tell you we have growth of 4.5%, so we are doing well. If you throw those statistics at us, it doesn't get to the pockets of people. So there must be a distinction between the reality in terms of people's existence, people's what you may call their realities of life versus these measurements that we do. The measurements are important. I'm not dismissing that. I think it's important for us to know statistically how we do it. But that cannot be the focus. That cannot be the complete measurement of our doing well. All right? So I do agree that no, there's a certain merit to that, but that cannot be the focus. The point is that we have to look at how we have structured our politics. I'm very keen on this point because if you look at the Constitution, for those who are afraid to touch it, one point that we should take into account, if you look at our development over the past 30 years, outside Accra, what can you point to people? Of course, we build schools here, we have built hospitals here, but these are routine for governments. Allowing the people to participate in their well-being. And here I'm hitting on the notion of decentralization, how power can be decoupled from the center enabling ordinary people, communities, districts to initiate and supervise their own development processes. With the government there, of course. But we are weakening this system so much so that if nothing emanates from Accra, then nothing happens anywhere in the country. For me, that's a critical one. So I think there is this disconnect between governance and the people, because governance and politics are almost at the top of the pyramid, but at the bottom is hollow. The district assembly elections we hold, you tell me how relevant it is to our development process. Because even in the district, if you want to build a school, we have to come to Accra for the Minister of Education to agree or to release funds for you. So I think we need to begin to rethink democracy. Democracy should never be top down, should be bottom up. And bottom means where? The grassroots, the communities, and the districts. Well, that's where the action should be. So
Right.
yes, because Ben, the problem has been that we will have to critically appraise our practice of democracy, the structure of power, making sure that power truly comes to the hands of the people, making sure that the executive does not dominate the other branches of government. And yesterday, Mr. Sam George was there, parliamentarian, who repeated the same thing, that as a parliamentarian, he knows that if he belongs to the ruling government, he's not going to sit in parliament and criticize that. He wants to behave himself so that the president can give him an appointment. And this is an issue we have all discussed for years now. So for me, in simple terms, there's a real need for rethinking our democracy, its practice, I should say. And I think the security of the state is more assured when people themselves become the agents of national security. Of course, you have these agencies, that's fine, state agencies are there, but the people, you see, look at what happened in Kenya. The ordinary people, and this has happened elsewhere, in the 80s, I remember Philippines, ordinary people, or even China, Tiananmen Square, ordinary people can rebel, and you cannot control that. So I think the important thing here is to ensure that our people are the depository of power, and they themselves should provide the security in addition to the state institutions. And that security will come when their well-being, their welfare is guaranteed, when they live their lives without any threats, when they believe strongly that they are participating in the governance of the country. These are the kinds of intangible things that we need to look at.
Right.
So it's not only the tangibles of soldiers well-equipped. I agree. I mean, when you have armed forces, they've got to be equipped properly to execute their mandate. Those things I don't dispute at all. But the bottom line is how we get the people themselves to protect the democracy that we have.
And it's, Professor Aning, it is mentally stimulating, though it is a horror show. What Prof mentions, Ajimandua mentions, the Tiananmen Square massacre, if you like, only captured in secret, else the rest of the world would not have known. But you find yourself in Mombasa, which is interestingly in Kenya, where recently this political unrest, civil unrest, has taken place. When you look at what Francis Poku talks about, regime security versus human security, states are moving away from regime security and focusing on human security, the economy and other things. These are things he mentions: corruption, rampant unemployment, and all of that. What is your appreciation of what Francis Poku said? Professor Aning, that question was for you, sir. You have to unmute, Professor Aning.
There is no security better than when ordinary people feel secure, that they think the people who came to beg them for their votes so they will serve them also deliver on the public goods that they promise. Right now, there's a huge lacuna between the promises given by those who want power and their actual determination to deliver on those public goods. And therein lies the disconnect that Balfour was talking about. If we take Galamsey alone, and we look at all the areas where Galamsey is taking place, Galamsey or artisanal small-scale mining cannot take place without the collusion of multiple individuals located within the interstices of the state. So that it's become a business by itself, fueled by collusion, by corruption, by basically turning a blind eye to what ought not to happen. And it's not only in mining, we see it in illicit logging. Now, when those who should govern in such a manner that the state gets its taxes to create jobs, to build hospitals, to build roads, to build schools, appropriate these funds to themselves, it reaches a point where there is no alternative than for people to say, look, this belongs to us. We want it back, and you cannot have it. So we are seeing a certain social awareness, a rising social awareness. And I think that is an aspect of the disconnect, that those who are governing us seem to take it for granted, that the masses, the youth, and I think in Ghana, the statistics yesterday was that 57% of our population are under 25 years old. They are tech savvy, they know how to use social media. And I think Francis Poku's caution was that, look, the indices that were present in some of his earlier warnings in 1975 are still present and even much more disturbing. And I can see you are showing something on your screen now. This is something that was tantamount to an attempted overthrow of the government, but we've taken it for granted. We've swept it under the carpet.
You're talking about when the military invaded Parliament, when the vote for a speaker at the dawn of the 8th Parliament actually took place.
Yes. You see, what was the basis for this invasion? Who authorized it? Who withdrew them? And we behaved as a nation as if nothing has happened. So if this happened 3.5, almost 4 years ago, what will happen in 2025? So when Francis Poku used 2025 as the lens to reflect on where we've come from, where we are, and where we may possibly be heading, I'm sure all these were part of it. But I like Bifor's point about ordinary people as agents of security. When we have an armed forces, the traditional notion of an army protecting the sovereignty of the state is that the enemy is coming from the outside. And there are still massive narratives about the enemies are coming from outside. I've always argued the last 18 months, which has made me a lot of enemies, that the enemy is from within. That we've got to change our threat assessments and analysis to say what are the things that threaten our stability, that poses existential threats to the state of Ghana and its communities and citizens. And it is not terrorism. It is not violent extremism. It is basically corruption, unemployment, illicit mining, illicit logging, and increasingly the sense that citizens feel that their voices don't matter, that they are just pawns in the larger game, where whether they lose their lives or not, nobody matters. All that we want is that they should just use their tongue at a certain point in time. Now, that becomes extremely dangerous.
And speaking about that danger, I cited what has transpired in Kenya for good reason, also partly because you find yourself in that part of Africa. But let me quote him here. He says he is predicting that Ghana risks facing another history, as I've mentioned, if significant democratic reforms are not made. He says people, and I'm quoting him here, people are losing hope and gradually losing confidence in democracy. If the phase of democracy does not change after 2025, we're going to go through another history. He goes on to say, In terms of the 1979 revolution, he mentions that there were warning signals and we knew about it, we ignored them. He says 3 years before the 1979 coup, we had predicted the revolution clearly. What is your reflection on those points vis-a-vis the very details you are giving, that the threat is from right here? It's not from without, it is from within. Professor Aning, I think you'd have to unmute again. Professor Aning, if you can if you can hear me, the connection is rather poor. So let me go to Professor Ajimandria. I'll be right back to you to answer on that question. Prof, I don't know whether you'd like to hazard any answers to that, because I have another question for you. But would you like to dwell on that point before we move?
Just summarize it quickly again, please.
So I was talking about the fact that, on the back of what we've seen in Kenya, and I bring Kenya in because Professor Aning is there currently, you would notice that there have been developments, some of which we are seeing here. Francis Poku says, if the phase of democracy does not change after 2025, we're going to have another history. Then he references the antecedents to the 1979 coup, where Rawlings, the first intervention. And I'm just trying to find out, what do you make of that?
Good point. In fact, I agree with him, and it's an issue I've been raising in different ways over the years, that the face of democracy must change. If the current leaders have no qualms about what we have now, whoever is coming in after the election must realize that Ghanaians deserve a changed democratic practice, which comes along with so many of the things that we talked about. Even the style of leadership must change, because to a large extent, if you look at the grievances of the Kenyan youth, which I believe are the same here, the leadership style of their people, the leaders, has been an issue for them. This opulence, this display of wealth by politicians, on and on. Their inability to investigate and find right responses to people who are allegedly corrupt. All these are issues that have been building up over the years. So I think if Francis is talking about changing the face of democracy, all he means, for me, at least my understanding, is that we need to change the practice by changing those things in the Constitution that enables politicians to behave the way they do. It's as simple as that. And of course, we go further down to talk about the decentralization and the other things. So I think it is true, and the signs are there. And one thing I have faith in is that even though the signs are there, I think Ghanaians, we have undergone so many traumatic periods in our lives with the military and all, that it's going to be very difficult for any military officer to think of a coup d'etat. I'm not saying it cannot happen. Anything at all is possible. Ghanaians do not fear blood. I think we have to reconsider that. So I think if Mr. Poku is talking about a new phase for democratic practice, all what he's saying is that the signs of old are still there. And it is true, towards 79, I wasn't around in the country, but from what I've read over in my conversations, clearly a lot of people in the government knew that something was going to happen. You see? So if we are serious about securing our democracy, then as Mr. Francis Poku says, let us look at our practice of it. If it's necessary, and I believe it is, to review the Constitution in a more genuine way, in a sincere way, not to simply allow the politicians to dictate how it should be, because left to them, they will not change it, because it favors them. Any political party in power finds favor with the Constitution, because immediately the president has thousands of people to appoint, and almost invariably they appoint their own people who may not have the capacity, and that contributes to our downfall.
Okay, let me go back briefly to Professor Aning. as well. Prof, welcome back. I don't know whether you'd like to hazard some responses to the questions I posed, and then we'd head to Parliament on some developments there.
Sure. No, I mean, I think Mr. Francis Poku was being very cautious. I mean, if you look at the words that he used, that people are losing. People have lost patience. That we are gradually, sliding into this problem. We are in the problem. What we need to do is to grab the bull by the horns and say, look, we cannot slip into the dangers that other communities or states have slipped into. We have a long history. Dr. Buzia failed to heed the advice of his national security advisor then, I think Mr. Oseibosu, about making particular appointments into the military. He didn't listen. Mr. Poku has warned us about 1979. For those of us who were young but were in Ghana, knew, that what was going to happen. I mean, there was this song that kindergarten children sang. Champong, no, there's no food. Champong, no spare parts. So when you listen to the narratives in the market, in trotros, in public spaces, in taxis, there is a sense of dejection and a sense that democracy hasn't served us well. And until the spoils of democracy trickle down, that is the best way to securing the state and also securing that democracy. So people must feel a part of that process. Right now, they feel that they are only hauled out every 4 years, used, misused, and dumped. And I think that is bringing quite a lot of anger.
And that was a conversation from yesterday. In fact, you also shared your thoughts on the external threats. But let's come to Parliament now. There's that latest report, though some ends say that maybe that may not be the whole picture. The chairman of that committee. There is a report on the IGP and some of his deputies, some of whom have since left the police service, trying to undermine him. The very first time we've heard anything of the sort. What do you make of that report so far, which seems to vindicate the Inspector General of Police and any actions that could follow on the back of that? Some are already calling for those people who are implicated to face punitive measures, whether they've retired from the police or not. Your take?
Is it for me or for Baf?
That's for you, Professor Aning.
Okay. So, I mean, I think you know my stance on this. That in all institutions, those who serve within that institution and under a particular leader cannot seek to undermine that leader and take his or her position by serving other external interests who are the appointing authority in the hope that in misbehaving, they will notice them and give them the job. So there was a fundamental ethical problem in the way that those gentlemen, that's number one. Number two, it was obvious to every neutral, objective observer that we needed to get this wrapped up as quickly as possible, but in depth, so that the institution of the Ghana Police Service will be protected. Unfortunately, this became a partisan football. And I would have thought that because these gentlemen had grievances, that our ombuds institution ought to have taken that step in saying, if people have grievances within a statutory institution, then we would need to listen to them. Although Parliament's attempts to deal with it is part of our democratic process, because the Speaker set up this bipartisan team, the utterances and the behavior during the committee sittings raised questions as to the impartiality of what the committee sought to do. I am not surprised that the committee has exonerated the IGP, but I'm also neither surprised about the utterances about minority statement and later they will talk about it.
Okay.
If the committee has finished its work, it should report. Normally, a minority report will be part of the main report, and that is where we end it. I don't think it's good moving into a very sensitive election for us to keep dragging this back and forth. The report has been issued, he's been exonerated. Let us move on and allow him to get on with this job.
All right. I'll come to you, Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah. Professor Aning, just hold for me. In the next few minutes, we'll be done. I just want your concluding thoughts on some of these matters. I don't know whether any of you would like a bite of this, because the defense minister, who was also speaking at the event, Dominic Neto, made mention of the fact that the military had to be held to strict political neutrality. But I'm curious, when you look at the recruitment into the security services as well, the police, the military and others, and the political elements in there, I wonder what he meant. But the two things I want to leave you gentlemen with. One, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbain, says, let's scrap ex gratia. I'm going to the Constitution to wrap. And then you also have a situation where our Constitution says you cannot be president unless you are 40 or above. We see that in France, likely Jordan, what's his other name? Let me just get it. Badea could become the new leader of that country. He's only 28. Time now for a good constitutional review, ex gratia, and the age for the presidency, looking at how things have gone so far. I'll start with you, Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah. 2 minutes apiece, and we're gone. Prof.
Well, first of all, just a bit to what Kwesi has so eloquently said about the IGP. I think it raises there's two other issues we need to quickly address. First, the promotional issue in Ghana, where people think their longevity in a particular institution gives them the lead to be heard. They don't look at performance, and that is not only in the police service. In most state institutions, people think I've been there longer than you did, and they are not looking at merit in terms of performance. And that, I think, afflicts the police and their services and the way they expect their promotions. Secondly, the whole notion of appointments by the executive, it also comes into play. I know people who have suggested previously that there must be a new structure of appointment processes so that it's not just the president picking, and that brings in the politics that we want to take out of the security agency. So the whole is bigger than perhaps what people have already expressed on this issue. Right. Now, coming back to the age issue, frankly, age is an asset. So we can look at reducing, but that by itself is not, it's not essential in the sense that a person's exposure, a person's own character, a person's experiences, all that help in decision making. So if you believe that at that age you have had that exposure, I don't know about the French and how they may be better placed than us. So maybe by the age of 25, you've traveled, you've done this, you've finished school and all that. But if you look at African countries, Ghana in particular, we have to be careful about the age issue. I'll be happy for young people to be taking certain roles, and they should not be limited from seeking those offices. And I think if a young person of 30 or 35 is able to present himself or herself well, why not? People should vote for him. So for me, with that, I don't have much problem with reducing the age. But one more thing. You mentioned 3 requirements for being president of Ghana: citizenship, age, and what? Being sane. Is that not it?
Yeah.
Have we ever tested people who want to be president? Have we tested their sanity?
And you see, that is the point to be made. I keep referencing Joe Biden versus Trump and some of the age issues in terms of coherence. And I mean, you know what happened. And that is where age comes in. And some people are worried. If you look at our leaders, I don't want to mention names, lest I sound, but you know where we are.
No, we can place an age limit. That one I have no problem with. I think 75, 80 should be a cutoff point. That one is clear. But I think that we can also come down to about 30 for younger people who have been privileged to be exposed earlier in life, to have all kinds of experiences, to also have the opportunity to lead. So I'm quite flexible about it.
All right. Prof, interesting thoughts. We can have a cap on the age and we can reduce it a bit. Professor Aning, final words.
Well, I think we should definitely have a cap on how old you can be to be president. Because you see,
what should be the cap? What should be the cap?
I don't know, probably 70.
70.
75 supermax. Because see, you've got to be able to have this link, this communication link with the bulk of your population. You know, when you are all very woolly in your head and you think it's almost an entitlement, then it becomes a problem. Jordan in France is not a good example. This is a man of 25%.
No, I'm not using him beyond anything apart from age. I'm just using the age factor. Purely age, nothing else.
Right. Yeah. But I think the 40, probably we can come down to about 35. If you think you've got the exposure, the experience, and you can pull people together. What we want is an individual who can pull us together as a country. Right now, I mean, Dr. Nkrumah was 47 when he became prime minister, and all his cabinet were fairly young people as compared to today's age group. So we need to look at that age bracket. But certainly, I think a cap of 75 years max would be useful.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Prof, for having joined the conversation. Prof and Prof, actually. Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah is a former UN advisor on governance. It's always good interacting with you. Thank you so much, Professor Agyeman-Duah. And again, Professor Kwesi Aning as well, joining the conversation all the way from Mombasa in Kenya. He is a security consultant providing bespoke services in risk assessment, analysis, and forecasting. Both of them joined us for this all-important conversation. Stay with us. There's still more to come right here on the AM Show. We'll be right back.
Welcome back on the AM Show, and welcome back from that all-encapsulating conversation on our governance and democracy. Let's now turn our focus to some diplomatic matters. In the studio with me this morning is the EU Ambassador to Ghana, Ishad Razali. Good morning, Mr. Ambassador.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Always great on Joy News.
Yes, always great on Joy News. And it's good to have you again in the studio. The last time we were here, we were talking about the Kalio 2 power plant and the Global Gateway project and all the work that you've been doing. How is that faring?
Very well, to the extent that tomorrow we are organizing an EU-Ghana business forum.
Yes.
And Global Gateway will be one of the main dish.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because that's the focus of our conversation today. And this year, the theme for this EU-Ghana Business Forum is fostering investment in non-traditional value chains under the EU Global Gateway strategy. Can you tell me a little bit about that and the significance of this forum?
Yes, of course. Non-traditional sectors are the ones which are not linked to exportation of raw materials, cocoa, oil, and gold.
Yes.
So everything which is not linked to that, it's a huge potential as well.
Okay.
And there are 1, 2, or 3 main challenges. First one is to find the proper investment, to attract the investment. Secondly, to identify the proper, what we call, value chain.
Yes.
And thirdly, to be able to exploit it properly and to export it. Because, you know, European and Ghana are key economic and trade partners. We want to increase the flux of exportation from Ghana to Europe as well. But this means producing more, transforming more, processing more in Ghana. And ultimately, this is about job creation for young Ghanaians.
Okay, like myself. And you were talking about transformation, and I recall that you said that's the focus of this EU Global Gateway strategy, doing transformational projects like the Kalio plan. So can you tell me more about the EU Global Gateway, the strategy itself, and how it contributes to the development of these non-traditional sectors you just mentioned in Ghana?
In a nutshell, the Global Gateway is an European way of working to pull together more investment, more funding, so it attracts and it betters the condition of investment in any given countries, such as Ghana. And secondly, it focuses on area where there is more transformational effect. It's a complicated word,
what?
But it means that it can change for the better a specific economic sector. So it means that it brings the culture of fruits and vegetables from traditional mango, traditional pineapple, to a more sophisticated, transformed, canned, merchandised product to go in the EU market, the global market, etc.
Means we are not just producing and exporting raw materials, but we are packaging it to ensure that
transforming it, packaging it, adding value to it in order to move from the vegetables you can buy from the sidewalks to the global supermarkets.
Yes, like our calipo, huh?
Exactly.
Okay, so can you share some examples of successful collaborations that the EU has embarked on, or the EU and Ghana in these non-traditional sectors?
There are many success stories. You know, renewable energy is one of them. We have funded this, with the member states, funded this power plant, but there is so much to do. Yes. There is so much to do. Through food processing, Ghana has the potential to be a very big agro-business hub for the region and for Africa. Something very different, but very, very qualitative, is the vaccine production. With the help of the European Union, Ghana is now becoming a vaccine production hub for Africa and the rest of the world. And this is as well based on transformation, innovation, technology, regulation, so you name it. And we have put in the system so far 40 million euros in order for Ghana to build a factory, to have a reinforced Food and Drug Authority, because they are the ones in charge of the regulatory environment of, food and drugs.
40 million euros.
Yes.
For transforming vaccine production.
Exactly, to accelerate it, to modernize it, and to be able to meet the global standards. This is a key journey.
And this is ongoing now?
This is ongoing. Okay. And I will visit that the day after tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so what are the key challenges and opportunities in fostering investment in these non-traditional value chains under the EU Global Gateway Strategy?
I think the opportunities I've mentioned, it's more job creation, more innovation, more sustainability, and be able to forge a place for yourself in the global competition, because we want to invest more in Ghana, to produce more in Ghana, and to be able to make these localized value addition, so the value stays in Ghana as well. So these are the opportunities. The challenges are linked to the business climate. This is a global competition, so you have money from Asia or from Europe. You are thinking, where is it safe to invest? So the Business Forum will be a way as well for us, together with the Ghanaian government, to showcase that Ghana could be a very good case to invest. This is what we want.
Does our economic climate affect your work here? For example, inflation, depreciation of the
city. Of course.
Do those affect your work?
Of course. These macroeconomic figures, potential return, but as well the regulatory framework, the experiences of people who are already on the terrain matters very much, because when you are a business people in any given area, you call the people who are already on the ground and say, how is it working for you? And they say, it's perfect, okay, let's go.
You want to come, yeah.
If they say, we have issue 1, 2, 3, maybe we will think again. So this forum, as its name says, it will be an opportunity to meet business to business, business to government, and to have, I would say, a proper assessment of the state of affairs here in terms of business climate and in terms of opportunities. Okay. We want to unlock opportunities. This is what it is about.
This is all that the Global Gateway is even about. And it's happening tomorrow at the Marriott Hotel from the 3rd to 4th of July 2024. How can we participate? How can individuals participate?
I understand it's already fully booked.
Oh.
Look at the success of the event.
Yeah.
But okay. For the ones who still want to join, I understand that you can connect to the Facebook page of the EU delegation in Ghana, and we can see.
Is that the name? EU delegation in Ghana?
Exactly.
Okay.
EU
so
delegation in Ghana.
We can participate and by joining digitally, but in person it's already
maybe
booked.
you can even still subscribe.
Okay.
Physically. So we'll see what is feasible.
All right. So how would you? What would be your message to those watching you right now on the back of this forum that's happening tomorrow? Although you can't even invite people anymore, it'd be good to hear directly from you.
There is a special case for press, so you'll be most welcome. But the message is the partnership between European Union and Ghana is very strong. We want to deepen it further in the field of trade, in the field of economic transformation, and we have a shared agenda with Ghana, which is more job for the youth of this country. And this goes with more private investment, a better business climate, and more funding opportunities that we, the European Union, are eager to bring on the table.
Okay, thank you so much, Ambassador Icha Razali, the European Union Ambassador to Ghana, and all the best for this two-day event happening at the Marriott Hotel from the 3rd and 4th of July 2024. And you can join them by joining digitally at European Delegation on Facebook. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. There's still more coming your way on the AM show. Stick and stay. We'll be right back. And we're back on your screen. But now let's talk about education. In the studio with me is Mrs. Thelma Teiko. Welcome to the program. How do you feel about, when you mention your name, do you get my reaction?
Yes, I do.
Teiko.
Yeah, Teiko is Thelma Teiko. All the T's are too many T's.
Yeah, TTT.
Yes, TTT.
And I think that's why we have TT's Learn and Play Center, right?
Yes,
so let's talk about that. What's it all about, TT's Learn and Play Center?
So I was in the corporate world most of my life.
Okay.
And then about 8 years ago, fertility issues made me decide to step out and do something for myself. And when I did, luckily I had my daughter. And the process of going to work, leaving her at school, and when there's an emergency, the back and forth was a little crazy. And then one time I was called when she was sick, and I had to rush from Jawulu to Community 25. That drive was a moment of pure panic and then a light bulb moment. There's something that mothers need that is not around. And all of these scary videos we've seen with helps and nannies and all of that doing funny things with our kids, I just realized it was a niche in the market that wasn't being satisfied. Okay. And also my personal passion, being a coach, I'm a John Maxwell certified coach. Okay. So for us to become better than ourselves and better than, make our generation behind us better than us, led me to think of what we can do to change the dynamic of things. So after handling the emergency and all of that, I sat back and I said, this can't continue. So through brainstorming and talking to a few friends, I realized this niche could be actually, somehow
developed into a business.
Exactly. Yes. So that's how TTs came about. So it's there to help parents. We will take your kids from school. You stay at work when they close from school. We will do their homework with them. We'll feed them. There's a sleeping area, there's play area, there are teachers there to support them. If there's a subject area deficiency, we would help with it. But my secret agenda really is to empower our kids, because the challenge we have in Africa of not growing organically is because our leaders panic when they meet their counterparts from the first world. And the reason is that somehow we freeze. Lucky for me, I went to boarding school from about 6 years old, so I don't have the fear of speaking to a grown-up. But our culture makes us, it teaches you to respect the elderly.
Not to talk back.
Not to talk back. Don't even look in the eyes of an elderly person. And it's not just us. Nigeria has the same culture. All of us, we have the same culture. It's an African thing. So we are brilliant people. We have a lot of brilliant minds, and yet we can't seem to break the barrier of creativity and create and innovate. So TTs is there to do that. So especially on the weekends, we don't just handle play and your school and stuff like that. We use AI with Makers Place team from Jawulu and Kids at Home STEM programs. We teach kids to be confident using the robots. Okay. So your kid comes to us 1, 2, 3, 4 Saturdays, and you realize they are almost different. So that's what we are doing. We want to give the African kid a voice so that we can break the barrier that our leaders currently have, is having a voice, no matter where you go, the confidence to speak up and to create.
So the difference between what you do and regular schools is that you're not running a curriculum. Instead, you're giving them additional skills.
Exactly.
You're taking them off the hands of parents after school.
Exactly.
So what happens when schools are on break then?
So that's the most amazing part. Actually, that's what I enjoy doing the most. And that's why I was hoping that we would have this conversation. So kids are on break, and a lot of the time, they're on the screens.
Yeah.
They are looking at their phones, they're watching TV and all of this. Meanwhile, this is a space where we let God do what he does most. Children learn most when they're playing. That's how God created us. And so we are creating an environment where it's theatrical learning. We are intentionally making the kids think they're having fun, but everything they're doing, playing chess, playing the Monopoly, all of the games that they play is geared towards something. Monopoly is for critical thinking, is for learning about money, learning about investment. And then now the program that we are organizing, going to these summer camps and all of that, it's going to get the kids' minds sort of open up, so that they will learn about themselves and be stronger in themselves. And when you're stronger in yourself, you know what happens. The sky is not even the limit. You go on and on and on and on. So that's the purpose. So on vacations, we run amazing programs like lemonade stands. They will learn about how to produce something, and then they'll make money from it, because parents will come and buy and give them money, and then they'll fill up their piggy banks. And then you bring your piggy banks, we bring bankers to come and talk to you about money. Yes, so how to...
Wait, let me take you back a bit. What age groups are you, do you
Oh, every age. So we started off by saying we want only from 3 years to 16 years. But we've had babies and all of that. So like we are babysitting as well. So yeah.
So you have bankers talk to the babies about banking?
No, so they talk to all of them generally, because I first and foremost encourage you to have a piggy bank when you're a kid. Because most of the kids come and there are coins and there's 10 cedis here, 20 cedis here. And why do you give kids so much money? Most of the kids that come to our centers go to all these international schools. So they are fed, they bring their lunch boxes and all that. So we teach them how to save money. So the bankers come and teach them about investment, the multiplication effect of investment. I was a banker, so I understand what it means to invest. Yeah. So we teach them, you put thousands, when you save up to about 1,000 cedis, you move it in a treasury bill. Then when it turns to 2,000, what do? It turns to 5,000 into a fund, something that will multiply and all of that.
That's a very crucial skill, compound effect. And if you are lucky to get that skill at such a young age, for the rest of your life, you have less broke days. I wouldn't say no broke days.
There you go, less broke days. Yeah. And but depending on what you want to do.
Yes. Yeah. And there's some camping happening at Royal St. Tell me about that.
Yes. That's exciting. So yeah, the first ever, we're going to do full-on camping experience for the kids. So we are going to take them to Royal Senchi. We were initially going to camp them overnight on the new island that they purchased, yes. However, because it's our first one, Senchi has agreed, and Senchi has been amazing with us. They've agreed for us to hold it in front of the river, so on the lawn near the golf course. So they are going to actually sleep in the tent overnight. The chefs are going to cook with them over the fire. They'll do s'mores, the marshmallows and the cooked crackers and all of that. They'll do their hot dogs. Oh, yes, it's going to be the full experience, and it's VIP experience. It's Royal Senchi, of course. So, yeah, that's going to be amazing. And then the trick is that we are taking the teenagers into the island and teaching them about this personality assessment. So this personality assessment helps you to figure out who you are in terms of leadership. Are you a dominant person? Are you an influencer? Are you, so if you are the softer type, and all of that. So if you are what you are, then we teach you how to manage yourself. So Eugenia, she's John Maxwell, also a coach, but she's the youth mentor. So she's going to handle that with the kids and teach them how to handle themselves. And it's going to be awesome. The little kids are going to have so much fun, lots of water sports. They'll actually have their backpacks. We'll do the hiking through the island, and they'll learn about little bugs and little insects and the types of trees and plants and all of that. It's going to be such a fantastic experience.
Can I join you? I mean, after the program, we'll talk about it, because I want to join this experience.
Some of the mothers have asked if they can come around. I said no.
No. Okay, so who can participate? How much does it cost? What are the requirements to participate in this amazing experience?
So actually, anybody can participate from the ages of 6 to 16.
Okay.
We want them really to have the full-on experience. So we don't want to push too much younger kids in there. But from the age of 6 and 16, anybody can come along.
How much does it
Bring your backpack, bring your favorite blankie, and that's it. Because we'll provide the tent, we'll provide the sleeping, whatever you sleep on, but just bring your blankie and your water bottles and the basic requirements.
You mean you don't have to be part of the school, the play center already to participate?
Not at all, not at all.
So those watching us can just up and
anybody, please join us, sign up and come along.
You are not talking about the money.
It's just 3,000 Ghana cedis per child.
That's
it's not,
cool.
No, yeah, that's very cool.
For
Royal
VIP experience, I agree with you.
And it's because it's our first.
Yes.
So we are bearing most of the cost. Century and TT's Learn and Play Center, we are bearing most of the cost. So the kids can have the experience and then subsequently the real price.
Well, hopefully when a real price gets there, I'll be able to join you. But
even now, you can join us.
How do we contact you?
Yeah, so you call us on 0244 656 886 or 0266001876.
Please say that again.
0244 656 886 or 0266001876.
What have we left out that is really important for our audience to know about your play center and this camping activity happening at Royal Century?
The main focus for me, really, and for TT's Learn and Play Center is for us to change the next generation. Africa can organically grow. We can. The problem we've had so far, why we've buried so many brilliant people in the cemeteries, is the fact that our culture has held us back. Now, if we change that, if we make the next generation become stronger and have a voice, we can break through anything. When you see Ghanaians go elsewhere, you see that we are developing, we are making a lot of things. Look at the Patrick West and other people. They've gone elsewhere, and hopefully, and he's part of my team, actually, when we do Becoming More programs. So these people have so much to give, but we have to change the dynamic of leadership in Africa.
Right.
And I don't want to participate in the politics, but I know we can do it with the younger generation. Yes. If we give them the strength and the voice they need, they can do it. That's the secret of TT's Learn and Play Center.
And that's
it's
the
not
secret
just a
power, really.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
You're
Mrs.
welcome.
Thelma Teku. TTT.
Thank you, beautiful sweetie, for having me.
All right, and hope all the best. I mean,
thank you.
When is this happening, though?
It's happening 2nd August.
2nd August.
Yes,
okay.
please.
All right. All right, there you have it. TT's Learn and Play Center. For just 3,000 Ghana cedis, your children can experience this really amazing experience at the Royal Century. And it comes with some learning, skills as well. But there's still more to come on the AM show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We are back on your screens, about wrapping up, but regular Kojos and Amas, talk to us now. Benjamin.
Well, right before we hear from you, under the distinguished patronage of Her Ladyship Justice Gertrude Tokonu, Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, the UPSA Law School proudly presents the 2024 Lifetime Achievement in Law Award and Honorific Lecture. Now, the event presents a rare but high-level opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the outstanding and exemplary contributions of notable Ghanaian personalities in the areas of the rule of law, governance, and the Legal Academy. This year's Lifetime Achievement in Law Award will be conferred on, guess whom? Nana Dr. SKB Asante. He is Paramount Chief of Asante Asokore and former Director of the United Nations Center on Transnational Corporations and Chairman of the Committee of Experts which drafted the 1992 Constitution of Ghana at an august ceremony befitting the aura of the occasion. Now, this event comes off on Thursday, the 25th day of July, 2024 at 5 p.m. at the Kofi Ohene Konedu Auditorium at the UPSA. Please visit the social media platforms of the UPSA Law School or call 0245 347 946 for more information.
Well, you can give us a call, but you know that we at the Multimedia Group are proud to announce that we are the official free-to-air radio broadcast rights owners of Euro 2024. And we have been delivering live commentary of selected games, including the opening game and the final, with our team of talented commentators and analysts on Joy FM, Love FM, Hits FM, Adom FM, Inshra FM, and Asempa FM. And you know that apart from the live radio commentary, we also have been curating some custom Euro 2024 shows on radio, TV, and digital, as well as live viewing events, all aimed at delivering unparalleled experience of the competition to you, our audience. Now, the Multimedia Group's radio broadcast coverage of the Euro 2024 tournament is by courtesy of Sporty TV and SportyBet. So, watch selected matches of Euro 2024 live on Sporty TV channel 36 on your digital TV sets. So, pick up your phone and call us now. But a gentle reminder to escape to Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, the Jurapa, Dubai. You've seen the rest, now it's time to see the best. Take a break from work. Take a break from the south. The Royal Cozy Hills Hotel is the best place to relax, rewind, and re-energize. It is away from the stress of the South. Now, what awaits you when you go there? One, unforgettable safari experience, amazing array of wildlife, including lions, hippopotamus, zebras, ostriches, among others, using their spacious and well-secured game tour vehicles or quad bikes. There's also water sports, such as jet skiing, boat or canoe rides, etc. There is various family activities to keep you and your family excited all day long. Great tourist attractions in the Upper West region, including the Mushroom Rock and Slave Caves, await you. So escape to the south, escape from the south rather, escape to the north, escape to Royal Cozy Hills Hotel for an unforgettable safari experience. And you can call them on 050-169-4280 or 024-88-44463 for reservations and further inquiries.
Well, interesting thoughts we've had to share today. Unfortunately, we cannot activate the phone lines and hear from you, but interesting thought about democracy and whether we are losing our grip, as per Francis Poku Esquire and what he's had to say about our democracy in Ghana. I don't know what your thoughts are.
He said that there's a disconnect between governance and the people, and I felt that because what we're experiencing, if it's governance, then really the disconnect is right in our faces. But this is where we are, Benjamin.
Gradual loss of trust for democratic rule calls for significant reforms. But yeah, we're all involved. We're
all in this together, as you know. On that note,
reminds me of what the president used to say when he was delivering the COVID-19 addresses. And we are in this together. Are we? This is how we wrap up the show this morning from Benjamin Akako and
Sweetie Abochi. And we're all in this together. Bye.
Have a wonderful day. Join News Desk up next.